do a little housekeeping. So
if you look for the newer members on the on that page, you'll see the reorganizational positions and what the current positions and who they're being held by. And then we just need to either reaffirm those individuals continuing in that role or nominating and voting in people in the new roles. So the first position to determine would be the Board of Selectmen's chairman.
anybody can make a nomination.
I nominate Rock Mitchell to continue the outstanding job he's done.
I second it.
There's a motion and a second on the table. Anybody else got any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Then that being said, I'm gonna make the motion to nominate Paul Larochelle as vice chair.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, next one is the alternative housing committee. Paul, you currently sit on that. Is that something you want to continue with?
Yes, I can do that again. I'll do that again this year. Yes.
No, Ryan, we don't have to vote on each one of these, right? They can.
No, you don't have to vote on each one of these unless there's, any discussion or anybody else is, has a wish to hold that position or whatnot. We can discuss that. Sure.
Oh, that's right.
That's
That's right.
That's a
I
good
didn't know if
point,
it was
'cause
going
we
to
are gonna
continue.
discuss that later on.
Okay.
Sorry,
It's on the list. So I thought it was coming back.
Yep. All right. So,
Okay.
So next we have the budget committee. Is there anybody that wants to volunteer to be on the budget committee? I think last year was Mr. Wentworth and Mr. Morse, you were the alternate. Is that something you want to continue to do, or do you want to give that to somebody?
Are you guys interested in the?
Either one of you gentlemen interested in the budget committee?
I'm a cheapskate, so I'll take it.
Fair enough.
so we do need an alternate for that, though. Do you want to, Andy, you want to continue as
Wanna
the
continue to be
alternate?
Yeah, I'll be the alternate. Yeah.
So we'll just,
Okay. And then CIP. Is something you want to continue
Yeah,
with,
I'll
Andy?
continue doing that. Yep.
We have Conservation Commission.
I'll do the Conservation Commission for Ruben. I'll take that. Cyanobacteria
Here's-
Mitigation Steering Committee.
I'll take that.
You want that one, Paul? I'm sorry, Facilities
Facility
Committee. I'm fine with that. Paul, do you want to stay the alternate on that?
Yes.
Okay, yep. Household Hazardous Waste.
We'll do that if no one else wants to.
Okay,
That's not actual cleaning though, is it?
yeah, that's, you're gonna clean.
No, it's the disposal of, I actually sit on the committee for that for Alton, for household hazardous waste, so I can get up with you at a later date to come to some of our, one or two of our meetings, so get some background on it.
Paul, do you want to stay on the master plan? I'm sure. Are we?
That's been completed.
That's complete, right? The master plan committee?
So I would speak to that as well. So at the last planning board meeting, the planning board did designate the master plan. Like,
Okay, but is that going to be voted on new or volunteers or the same committee?
yeah, we have to go through it again.
Mhm.
So we still need a selectmen's rep.
Okay,
Paul?
yes.
And I'll
I do
stay
the alternate for that? Can I do
Let's-
that, the alternate
Yeah.
for that?
Oh, you can, absolutely,
Yeah.
by all means. Milfoil Committee. I'll do that. It's fine. It's fine.
Home week.
Old Home Week Committee?
Yeah, I can take
You want
that.
that? All right. Parks and Rec. Andrew, do you
Commission.
want that?
Yeah, I'll take that.
All right. Planning Board,
You want to take it and I'll be the alternative?
no.
No? Okay. All right, I'll take that.
All right, we need an alternate though. On planning board.
Yeah, I'll take the alternate.
Okay.
Water Bandstand. Paul?
Yeah, I'll go back on it.
Zoning and Ordinance Committee.
I was on it, but I'll get off. I'm already on quite a few things now, so.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to do it around where the ones that I can't make you, it's hard for me to get to.
So zoning.
Zoning, anybody interested in zoning?
I'll give it a go.
Yeah,
Sure.
either one of you guys?
It'll kind of go hand in hand with planning too.
Yeah, kind of, yeah, good.
Okay.
Do you want, we need an alternate for that one.
Richard, you want to be an alternate for that one?
Zoning?
Zoning?
Yeah,
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
It's the committee, yeah.
And then zoning
and
board.
zoning board adjustment, do you want that still?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, I was
All right.
voting back in, so.
I think gotta be there anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right. That being done. Public input. Limit to 3 minutes per person on agenda items only. Come on up. If anybody has anything. Seeing none, we'll move on to appointments. John Desmond,
That's a good one.
come on up. Standard Power of America.
This is my manager, Ryan Polson.
All right, thank you, Ryan.
He'll be given the bulk of the.
Thank you.
Presentation.
Evening, everyone. Thank you again for having us. As John indicated, I'm Ryan Polson, also work at Standard Power. John's been talking to the town for a little while now about community power, and I don't know if that's something that you guys have heard of before, but I wanted to go over it briefly because I see that there's a lot of other people here. So with that, I'll get started. Feel free to ask questions as we go. But Standard Power, we've been an energy consultant down in Nashua since 2010. We've evolved as a company over the years to do as much as we can in terms of renewable energy, something that we care about. And we've implemented this vast hydro program throughout the state and have provided most of the benefits from that program back to schools and towns. Community power, something separate, came about in 2019. It got support, was signed by the governor, and we wanted to do an alpha test pretty quickly. The program itself was something we were interested in because it was just another way to help towns. So we went to the Public Utilities Commission and they said, no, this isn't ready, even though it was signed into law. We also talked to the electric suppliers who would participate in the process, and they too were like, no, this isn't ready. So time went by and it got looked over. The utilities, Eversource primarily, introduced a kill bill to do away with this program. Back into the legislature it went, and in August of 2021, the governor signed the modified bill for the second time. And the Public Utilities Commission has 60 days to approve once a bill is signed into law, and fast forward from August 21 to October 2022, and the PUC finally approved the final rules of the program. So it's been a long process to get to where we are, but we've been kind of working on this from day one. And our first 4 programs launched in the beginning of March for a June start. So that's kind of a little history of the program, but what the program is, in a nutshell, is a way for the residents of the community to be given a variety of options to lower or increase the amount of renewable power in their electric bill. Obviously, over the last year or two, electricity costs have gone up pretty significantly. And even though I believe Alton's mostly electric co-op, if not all of electric co-op, they've done pretty well over the years, keeping costs down relative to the other 3 utilities. But I live in Raymond, in the small piece of electric co-op, and the rate went up to 17 this past year, and is at 13 currently. So even the co-op can go up in cost, and if there's a way to decrease that for the residents, we think that is valuable. So the program offers low cost and hopefully more renewables as options to the residents of the community. Each resident on an individual basis can choose which product or which rate the program offers, and we'll get into that. But the town would appoint a committee, a community power committee. It has to be separate from an energy committee, and I'm not sure if the town has one, an existing energy committee, but the select board would appoint a committee to develop a plan, and we would hope to work with that committee to develop that plan. Some of the benefits of doing a program like this is that you get to time the market. The utilities are set in buying electricity 2 times a year, and the co-op is a little different. But they still abide by some of the same rules. If you look at Eversource, they buy the 2 worst times of the year, end of December and end of June, when typically energy costs are the highest for the year. And whatever the rate happens to be that day, that's what the Eversource default rate will be for the next 6 months. The co-op has a different method where they're able to buy a little more frequently, but still faces some risk in timing. So we, as a consultant and broker, have more flexibility in when we can purchase power and better time the market. So we make sure that we're getting as best a rate as we can. And then you look at buying power. An individual resident can go out and get a third-party supply contract at any point. I'm sure you all have gotten those companies sending you things in the mail saying, sign up, you get this great rate for 4 months, 5 months, and then people forget, and then the rate goes up. So having a plan that was developed by the town, protects the customers or the residents of the community from falling for or being getting hunted by predatory companies, so to speak, and B, buying power. Instead of having a single resident purchasing their own contract, you're grouping an entire community together, increasing that electric buying group, that amount of kilowatt hours. You increase that amount and you have a better load to go out and get electric rates. So those are some of the big pros to developing a plan, but but there's obviously other things, and we'll get into that real quick. A lot of the programs that we've been working on so far, we've had 4 officially launched and 7 that all were approved at their town meeting just this week and back on the 14th. So we're very excited about that. Our first goal is to send out a survey to the community, and we want their input. We want to know what do you care about? Is having the cheapest rate possible what you care about? And there's a section of the pie chart that is exactly that, and that's okay. But we also get a lot of people who are interested in 50%, 100% more renewable energy in their electric rate. But the largest by a good margin is, I want to pay about the same as what I pay now, but I would like a little more green in my cost. And that is won out in all 11 surveys that we've done so far of the communities. That has been the largest piece of the pie chart. So I think it's important to have as many options as possible to the residents. And as a company that cares about renewable energy, we want to promote that as much, but at the end of the day, it's the town's decision and the committee's decision on what goes into the plan for the residents. There's a couple charts or graphs in here, and I'm trying kind of skipping around a little. But on page 2, that's one of our buying groups of schools and towns. So for our traditional business, we do electric supply contracts for schools, towns, C&I customers. But this graph in particular is for one of our school and town groups and how they fared against the utility. And that group had mostly Eversource customers. So that's the Eversource rate, which is the blue line, and the orange rate, which is the group rate that they've had over a long period of time. And they've done very well, our customers have, and we expect to continue to have the same results in community power. Even with the dip in the market during COVID, we were still slightly, but still below the Eversource rate at that time. On page 6, so I mentioned we launched 4 programs. There's a chart, a table of the rates that we just contracted for the first 4 communities: Keene, Swansea, Wilton, and Marlborough. And you can see below the current default rates of the 4 utilities. And we included one of our competitors and what their pricing was. They're at 15.8 for their cheapest option, and we're at 11.1 for our cheapest option. So we've been confident from day one that we would be able to offer the lowest rates possible, and we're still even able to offer 100% green at a rate lower than our competitor's cheapest rate. So we're very excited about that. And every rate option that we have, except for the full 100%, is still lower than the current co-op rate. Co-op does a good job, and at the end of the day, the co-op still might do the best job. And if you develop a program and the co-op rates are still competitive, then you don't have to launch the program. But I think it would be a good idea to at least look at the idea of it. We don't get paid until a program actually launches. So if we help you develop the program and get it approved at each stage at the Public Utilities Commission and at town meeting, and it fails at town meeting, let's say, we take on that risk. So if it fails, we don't get paid, and we understand that. we've been successful in all 11 cases so far, but there's always that chance that it doesn't pass. We have worked with one community that's solely electric co-op, Waterville Valley. So we have been involved with a co-op town, but again, the co-op has for years been pretty competitive to the other utilities. So so I'll skip to page 8. So the ultimate goal again is dependent on what the town's views on this program are. It can be, again, up to you on if you just want to go with cheapest rate. I don't know if the town has any outstanding goals of being renewable. If you do, that's great. And you can incorporate some of the town's goals in building projects locally into the plan. Solar projects, we've been talking to a lot of communities about how you can, the want to build local and the idea of incorporating the power and the renewable energy credits that are produced from the project and including them or working them into your program. So if by being 50% or 100% green, that means you're buying RECs to add on to the cost. They're two separate entities, two markets. And a lot of the time the RECs are coming from Texas wind or somewhere else in the country, not really probably local. So the idea of having a local project that you can sleeve those local RECs in, people might care. People might not, but some people will. And I think we've been looking at that right along with a lot of the communities, and down the road, I'm sure those projects will come into play. So page 8 shows the upper half shows kind of everything that we will do to help the town develop a program and get it approved. Again, starting from helping even form a committee to developing the plan, which we already have Public Utilities Commission approved plans, and going from the planning stage to the outreach of the community to approval at the Public Utilities Commission and then approval at ultimately town meeting. So the first steps would be to appoint a committee, and hopefully if you decide to work with us, we have a 2-page MOU that essentially states the what I just went over, that we will help you and the committee develop a plan all the way to approval of town meeting. And then at that point, we would hope that you would continue as we go into the purchasing of the power stage, but
Ryan, I hate to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
the 15, we have to stay on
Sure.
schedule with the pro, so we just have to wrap it up as far as presentation, because we have a full agenda tonight.
Yep.
So
so that's about it. Any questions, happy to answer, but if not, feel free to reach out to us and we can talk more.
absolutely.
I don't know about you guys, but I'd like to look this over a bit
Yeah,
before we
yeah.
make it.
But thank you very
Thank you,
much.
gentlemen,
for
for
the
coming out. I
presentation.
appreciate it.
Is Alton all, is there any,
It's not all co-op, is that? what
it's
you're
not
saying?
all- so some,
It's not all, it's very small,
Yeah.
very small Eversource, but
Eversource is
the
small.
bulk of it, thank you very much. Yeah. We have some Eversource, there's a small portion that's Wolfboro Power. I'm trying to think if there's another one. I think those are the only two.
That's it, just that.
So Eversource and Wolfboro
Yeah,
Power.
just that.
Those are two small portions on either end of the community. So the bulk majority of it is New Hampshire Co-op.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Have a good evening. Thank you.
I'll be in touch.
Okay, thank you.
All right, new business. Water Department, New Hampshire DES 2023 grant.
Okay. Members. Just before we begin, there was a memo that was on in front of you. Please disregard that one. The memo that's in the book. The difference was there was a little confusion about whether there was no match or there was a match. That's been clarified that there is no match. It's 100% funded grant going into it, and Courtney and Dana will explain further on that one.
Like I said before, I apologize ahead of time for the confusion. Welcome, Nick and Richard. Glad to have you. This is Dana. He's from Tigan Bond. Basically the one that put this whole package together. So we're looking to enter into 100% match grant for the asset management program.
100%.
100% funded.
Funded.
Yeah, sorry. That match is really getting me today.
Just clarify.
No match. Okay,
No
so
match.
that was my mistake earlier. I think I pulled up the document from 2021 and then it got in my head and I started backpedaling. So this grant is, some of you know, the new members don't. We tried to get an asset management grant back in 2020. And we were unable to fulfill that. We were awarded it, but we didn't take any of the funds due to staffing issues. We're fully staffed now and we have a contractor to help us go through the grant, and that's Dana and his consultants to kind of walk us through this program. It's a lot more entailed than the last time we went into it. In the memo, the original memo, it breaks down the tasks that are involved with the grant and the value with that task, adding up to the total disbursement of $88,800. And like I said before, that's 100%. So we should not have to put any of our funds from the water department into that. If there's any highlighting things that you want to bring up.
I think it's important to just kind of point out what do you get for this? And the water works will get complete mapping, all digitized and on tablets. So if Courtney's out in the field and she's got a hydrant that breaks, she can call that up on her tablet. It tells her the age of it, when it was maintained, when it was flushed, what it is, so that if she needs to order something, boom, she can do that right then and there. So it puts everything at her fingertips live in the field, which is kind of where the world is going. It puts all of the system, it digitizes and puts it on GIS. So it's really easy for her to plan on things. It looks at risk. So it'll look at the age of the pipes, the type of the pipes, so that Courtney can then put together, if she needs to, a capital improvement plan. So that if we're thinking about replacing a water main or updating this or updating that, the water tank, whatever it happens to be, she can then use this as a planning tool to be able to help her put together budgets, out there. So it's a really useful tool. And again, it's zero cost to the town. And to the taxpayers. So, it's.
And it more or less puts us into the 21st century instead of being.
Yeah.
back
So
for nothing.
as you know,
It's-
before,
Zero.
At
We-
no
It's a
cost to the
win-win.
town.
right, we were doing
Yeah.
this all in-house before. So as far as the GIS and the mapping, I think you're probably one of the older two members that know that, we were just doing that on a free mapping program. So we were doing everything, but we were just scratching the surface of everything. So this is going to be a real in-depth, really getting into the asset management and mapping and, the break histories and all that. So
I think it's.
So here's just one quick question. How do you put the old, like sometimes you don't even know what's under the ground.
I got a pretty good idea what's out there right
Yeah.
now. Yeah, I've gone through the ground a lot.
No,
Almost got X-ray vision, to be honest with you. No, I mean,
but some of the older stuff that you get down there and go, whoa,
yeah,
this was supposed to be there, but that's not there.
the baseline that we have from the free mapping that we've done from our own research is a really good, it's almost like going out and getting a heart monitor, if you have that baseline, where your start was. So I think we're in a really good spot. There's not much that we haven't
Okay.
either been into or have records. And a lot of the stuff has been at least replaced in a section. So we know what we're
Right.
dealing with. Not that there's not going to be any surprises out there.
I just
Don't get me wrong.
forget throwing it
But-
out there.
You know, we have a real good
Good hand.
baseline now just from being out there and having the boots on the ground and
If
getting
we're
dirty.
that, every facet of the water department, right? Every line in the ground, it'll be able to tell you where everything is.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, we'll rely on her existing mapping.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it'll go through a
Break
couple of
history.
iterations of making sure that we've got the data right when we, assemble it all. We're not scrapping anything that she's already done. So all of the
So-
mapping that she's already
fine
done,
tuning it.
didn't waste your money.
Right.
We built that into the program here.
It's a
So-
step in the right direction.
Yeah, so we're not recreating the wheel.
And there
Like
might
a-
be
Really. It's- Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be great. So, and I do apologize for the confusion earlier.
Sorry.
It's 88,000 and.
Totally fine.
Yeah, and I will say that, we were a little cautious isn't the right word, but we made sure that there was enough money in here to do everything you need to do under this. So you may not spend the full 88. And it's if you don't get the extra.
Right, yeah.
You get what you spend.
Yeah.
Now, is this a reimbursement type, just for clarification? Do we pay out and then submit
Yes.
for reimbursement?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think you'd have to appropriate, in anticipation of reimbursement through the grant program.
But this is going to start effective this year, right?
As
Yeah,
soon
so
as you sign the
Yeah.
paperwork and
So-
I'm going to hand deliver
Yeah.
it.
So what we'll
I'm-
do is
take
we won't have an appropriation for it. What we'll have is we'll have a separate, I'll have finance create a separate line to account for the expenditure.
Yep.
And then show the revenue that comes back
Right.
into, because it's a
Offset that.
reimbursement grant. Yeah.
Right.
Once this database is established, will our people be able to update and revise it as things change or are expanded?
Some people will.
Some people will. Yeah. So the way, and it's an ArcGIS model, right?
Right.
So basically there's layers on that and there's users. My guys, my crew can go out and add stuff, but deleting or any type of edits like that would go through either myself or Dana's
You
team.
do it on an iPhone.
Yeah. I mean, it's tablet based, so they can go out and collect the data. But as far as deleting or, editing anything out, that's going to be probably by the user.
Yeah.
altogether.
If it goes into effect, is there any monthly or yearly? Anything we'd have to pay for fees or anything like that to use the
RTIS.
software?
That's a fair question. Not for this particular program, but for the ArcGIS, this is not the only program that's built into that. That's the new platform that the town is.
Plus our IT department uses that already.
This,
Well,
the
there's a-
ArcGIS can be built off outside of,
It's the main,
it's huge.
it's the main foundation.
You can pull in all the town's maps. You can put, if you so choose
They're all on
to.
layers.
Right.
It's just layer on top of layer. It would just build.
Yeah.
So is there a continued fee
Just to.
year
speak
after
to-
year for, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I was just
Sorry.
going to speak to that maintenance fee. That's already, we already
We already.
have that
Already
in
had
the
it, Which
budget.
we already did before.
Yeah.
Yes, in the
Not
budget.
through me. That's actually, Josh has
It's
been.
Josh has got the GIS stuff.
So there's
It's
no,
in his-
That's what I thought, and that's why I was asking if there was a continued fee.
Yes.
There's no additional fee. for that.
Additional.
Yes.
Be adding a user.
Yeah, right.
Perfect. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the water superintendent.
So you have
You
to-
gotta read the
All right.
language.
Okay, yep,
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
okay.
So we had to change. the
Thank you.
amount.
I make a motion to accept the terms of the 2023 Asset Management Planning Grant as presented in the amount of $88,800. Furthermore, the board acknowledges that the total cost of this project will be $88,800, in which the town will be responsible for 0% match of and to authorize the town administrator to sign all documents related to the grant.
I second that.
Any discussion on it? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Alton Youth League, Jones Field dugout. Lost.
Oh, thank you.
That's what I'm gonna give her.
Hey, good evening, gentlemen. My name is Kelly Center. I am the softball coordinator for Alton Youth League. The Alton Youth League is seeking permission to build 2 6x18 dugout buildings in replica of those found on Little Fenway. The approval has already been given by the Parks and Rec Commission, the Public Works Department, and Building Inspector. The material that has not already been purchased and present on the field will be paid for by the Alton Youth League, and the construction of the buildings will be completed through volunteer work. At the completion of the construction, these buildings will be utilized by our youth during our season, but will technically belong to the town of Alton. Guys,
I have no issue with this
No,
whatsoever.
Research the material.
Yeah, it's.
The material is good.
Yep.
Research and then looked at that. I think it's been a long time waiting.
Yep.
Is that material on site still in good shape?
It is. It was just delivered to us last fall. We were able to get it into a storage unit for the winter. And so I was just down there today, actually going over, none of the blocks seemed to, it all weathered well. That was outdoors for the winter.
Mhm.
Just need a little bit more warm weather and we should be able to break ground soon.
As I said, you had it written in here. This is when you planned on starting.
I don't have I
Don't have
just, as soon as
as
we
soon
can
as
get
you
in
can,
there. Yeah,
If you
I mean,
approve.
everything's still pretty, yes. Approval.
Perfect. I'll entertain a motion, gentlemen, if somebody wants to make it.
Make a motion, we allow them to build the dugouts that they want to build in Jones Field
As presented.
as presented. I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Road acceptance, Ridge Road.
Mr. Chairman, the information you have here on Ridge Road. For you folks to consider, we're at the stage right now where this package, they have met all their conditions. The package has gone out for legal review. So we're just waiting to make sure legal review does not have any issues with the paperwork that's in hand. As you can see from the memo from the planning department, that as far as they're concerned, they have received final approval from the planning board of Ridge Road. And they are ready to have, we would be ready to have a public hearing once legal review comes back for a formal road acceptance. So at this stage, based on the information you have, what I'd be looking for from the board is authorization to go ahead pending a successful legal review to post a public hearing for the road acceptance of Ridge Road. So I need the board's authorization to be able to go forward with that next stage. And then obviously at the public hearing, you'll hear any comments regarding the matter, and then a decision can be rendered at that point. Does anybody have any concerns if we move forward in that
It was-
process?
If I
I'm
may,
sorry.
it was all approved and looked at through the Public Works Director, and everything looked good as far as the road is concerned.
Drainage and
The
everything's fine.
drainage and so on.
Was it?
Yes, I don't know if this one's been finally reviewed. Yes, he's not his head. Yes. This is finally reviewed.
Okay, I thought so. I thought so. And this has gone through the planning department and everything was approved in the plan. So you just,
We could
Are you
probably
looking-
just do that with a consensus.
just consensus?
Yeah.
I,
Just for the board.
I'd say we'll go to council.
Okay. If it's the board's consensus. Yep. Shall be done.
Thank
So
you.
we will do that. If we can, the hopes would be on the timeline that we can get a turnaround from legal in time to make the posting requirement dates, I believe it's 10 days for the public hearing before next meeting. That would be our anticipated timeline.
Do we take over all road maintenance for the road?
What if the road is accepted?
Is accepted, yes.
Yep. So. All right. So I'll go ahead and get the rest of that done.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, IT department, capital reserve purchase.
I will speak to this one. Unfortunately, our IT manager, we spoke earlier and we had been in conversations about this proposal coming forward, but he had a conflict tonight and was not able to attend. He is watching remotely and said he would call in if there was any questions I couldn't answer. But really what this proposal is, as designed by the CIP program and the monies that were approved this year as well. We have a capital improvements account for IT upgrades of roughly right now it's 49.5 approximately within a few dollars. So 49,500. It's currently in there. And that was established so that we could keep up with the ever revolving technology that we have to. When we had established that capital reserve, we were behind the Powerball a little bit with some of the older workstations that we had and things of that nature. This request to expend $26,543.26 out of the IT fund is to replace those older units. I know this is a one lump sum replacement right now, but that's just to get us from where we are behind the power curve to current now so that we can maintain at much smaller doses and sort of space it out a little bit more. But right now we have too many workstations and too many departments that are crashing, outdated, constantly having problems. We also have improved some of those workstations, especially for department heads, to utilize tablets so that at meetings and other places, they can take their workstations right with them. To be able to utilize several department heads already have them. They've been very successful. So just that's what this cost represents. This expenditure is to replace outdated and no longer supported or usable hardware throughout the different departments.
So all the department heads will have a tablet?
Most of them will. Most of them have requested it. Some of them haven't requested it. And they don't prefer to try to work because some of them, it depends on how comfortable you are with your eyesight because they're not that big. But some of the other most of the department heads, especially the ones that attend meetings on a regular basis, have requested them and or have either requested them or already received them.
Do we have or should we establish some kind of a program going forward where you automatically plan to replace, say, a laptop every 5 years or some period of time?
Yes, and that has already been worked on and established. What we're doing is we're just trying to get to that point where we can space it out because this capital reserve wasn't established until it was either a couple of years ago. It's only been in effect for 2 years. So a lot of these workstations, some of the servers and things like that had been in existence and been utilized for many, many years. And so we're just a little behind. But definitely moving forward, that's our goal. And that's what Josh has been working on is really a cycle plan so that we're not hitting everything at once. It's, it's more spread out. So, but that is currently being worked on.
Okay. More discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve the IT director to spend $26,543.26 from the capital reserve for the CRF equipment expense.
Okay. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, fire department, forestry truck upgrade. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
And welcome to Mr. Shea and Mr. Bonapane.
Thank you, sir.
So ahead of you, you have a proposal for the forestry truck to replace the fire pump that's on it. Some of you may recall in 2018, we made the decision to not completely replace that truck. We made a decision to refurbish it. So we put the 2001 body on a 2018 chassis and did some upgrades here and there through that process with lighting and radios and that kind of thing. Unfortunately, the pump that's on it now is 22 years old and we're unable to secure parts for it, and the pump needs to be replaced. So here we are.
What's the life expectancy of the new one you want to get?
It really and truly depends on how long it's supported. It's a hail pump, so the pump that was on it before was a hail, so I anticipate we'll get the same lifespan out of it. For those of you that are familiar, especially with the construction world, it may seem like a really expensive pump. That's because it is. Essentially, when you buy a pump off the street, or if you go to Lowe's or Home Depot or something to that effect, you'll get a pump that does pressure or gallons per minute. Fire pumps do both. So that's the tough part with our world and our industry is we just need the more capacity and capability.
And the truck that it's going on, that's the one you refurbished.
Correct.
And that one's when is that one due to be upgraded, that truck?
It's technically on in 2028, but that's something we're looking to push out because it's still in great condition. It's only got about 10,000 miles on it. So we anticipate pushing that in CIP.
Yep.
And those are some of the trucks that we're going to be playing the shell game with and pushing off.
So that pump could go on the updated truck when you get ready to replace it.
It could, but I don't anticipate we'll be getting rid of this particular truck. The body that's on it is made out of poly and aluminum.
Yep.
And we do somewhat restrict its mileage in the winter, so we don't see any reason why it won't last. The other truck lasted about 20 years. We anticipate this one should last at least 15.
Okay.
And this pump looks like one that you really researched and looked at. It was a good
It's essentially a direct replacement. Of what was
direct
there.
replacement of what you've already got.
Correct.
And how old was that one?
2001.
Money's worth out of it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. It's time. Okay.
Do we,
The plan was to refurbish it, but not being able to get parts.
Yeah, if you
became
can't get
an
parts.
unplanned replacement.
Is it inoperable now?
Correct.
it's out of service?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now-
If this gets approved, how soon can we get the pump?
It depends on the manufacturers, like with everything else in COVID. Again, this is a rather a small market, more of a niche market, so it could be some lead time, but we're planning on doing all of the legwork in-house. So basically, as soon as it hits the floor at the firehouse, we'll get it in and get it going.
There any? No other questions? So I put forth a motion to appropriate the funds of $9,666 to get them the pump that they need for the truck.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right.
Started off with a cheap one.
Yeah, unfortunately, the ladder truck has been a long time coming. This, we originally started these conversations in probably 2011 or 2012. And we have essentially exhausted every possible option between then and now to secure funding, lease purchasing, purchasing used vehicles since then. With the purchase of the used truck back in 2020, that was purchased with the intention of giving CIP a chance to save for the purchase of the new one. So at this point, we are
Mr. Chairman.
at that.
Yes, sir.
With that being said, how is the used fire ladder truck doing right now?
The used truck is doing okay.
Mhm.
The one of the issues with that particular truck, it was 3 manufacturers that built the truck.
Mhm.
And one of the reasons why we look forward when we purchase vehicles and take special attention to purchasing from a sole source manufacturer, meaning one manufacturer manufactures every piece of the vehicle. What we run into when we purchase vehicles that are multi-manufacturers is companies will go out of business. So 2 out of the 3 manufacturers of the current ladder truck that we own have gone out of business and have been out of business for some time. So through this process, we certainly considered possibly some trade-in opportunities, and essentially none of the third-party vendors for used apparatus really had an interest in this truck because of some of the issues that particularly the aerial device has. So with that being said, We're currently operational now.
Mhm.
But if something fails, it will be highly unlikely that we'll be able to get the parts to fix it.
The two companies that went out of business, out of the three, what are the two companies? What did they make on that truck?
So Aerial Innovations or manufactured the actual aerial device and the hydraulic system and that kind of thing. And then Laverne was the other one, and they made the body and all the body
Body itself.
components,
So essentially, the one that's still in business covers what?
the chassis,
Just the chassis.
so the
Power.
frame, the wheels, the engine.
And no other businesses, no other sister businesses bought any of the hydraulic systems and stuff like that?
They may have at one time. From what I understand, Aerial Innovations has been out for some time. I guess they were absorbed by LTI, which is a smaller company in the game right now, but they're not manufacturing parts specifically for that aerial.
So parts availability is just scarce or non-existent.
From what we've been told, non-existent. We'd have to
Basically,
find a used truck
parts are
somewhere to get
used.
parts off of it, which creates a whole nother channel of
Would be
liability.
some of the major factors or parts that you would be most concerned with on that?
So going back to our experience with the previous aerial truck, which we had for about 30 years, the most expensive component was the actual hydraulic swivel that we had to replace, which lived underneath the turntable.
Mhm.
That's what carried all the electronics and hydraulics up through the aerial device. We spent about $100,000 on that 2 years before we took it out of service.
Mhm.
So we've learned through our own personal experiences, specifically with these high dollar value assets, that as they reach the end of their life, they start costing us a lot more money. With plenty of other things hanging in the balance to fail.
When is the last time you inspected that spot on that truck? If that's the most critical one, how often do you look at that?
I won't say it's the most critical. It's just the most expensive piece that we've personally had experience with. The whole aerial and truck gets inspected twice a year. So every year in June, there's an independent company that comes out and does various testing. They come up with usually a list of things that we need to address and look at. For instance, we had a cracked rung on one of the aerial pieces, and they suggested we sent it back to the manufacturer to be welded. Well, the manufacturer doesn't exist. So we had it done with a certified welder as like a next best bet. So we're already starting to run into some of those issues. But to answer your question, it gets inspected annually by a third party company that comes out.
Mr. Chairman, man, in the last 3 years, how many times has that been in service? Since you bought it in 2023, how many times has this been used? To fight a fire or an emergency? The ladder truck.
How many, you're talking responses?
Yeah.
How many responses, how many
Yeah.
times did you actually physically use? I know one is Wolfboro.
Sure. Yeah. And we've gone to Wolfboro a number of times. If I had to put a number on it, and I'm sorry, I can get that information for you, but it'll be tough to say because when we pull the data from our program,
Mhm.
it doesn't necessarily differentiate whether it did any work or if it was just signed on and responded to something.
I see.
So it'll be difficult to do without kind of going right back through. If I had to guess, that truck responds on approximately 5 to 6 runs per month.
Okay.
Out of a total call volume of what per month?
11, well, it's 1,100 per year. So
Okay.
My only I got what percentage of the buildings in our town do we really need a ladder truck to fight?
sure. So we, when
not
we
just-
applied for a grant in 2018, we were kind of going down through the list of where we ranked on the level of priority for
Okay.
replacement. And we actually ended up ranking pretty high on that priority list because we stopped counting at 40 buildings that were over 4 stories tall.
Okay.
Now, keep in mind, I understand that Alton has an ordinance, you can't be over 2 stories, right? Well, it doesn't come in and take into account changes in elevation and grade. So there are plenty of situations where we need to access 2nd, 3rd, and 4th story windows. And we do have a list of those addresses. We didn't put them in here. If you'd like to see them, we can pass those along. But more so than reaching height, it's reaching its reach. It's not necessarily height, it's reach. So giving our staff a stable work platform, especially with how much more often we're seeing solar panels on people's roofs, seeing metal roofs, steeper roofs, more elaborate roof systems. It's not just so plain. So when we look at the need, it's hard to just look at size of buildings.
Yeah, I just, and I'm not taking anything away from it, but
Yeah, no
when
worries.
you're looking at $1.5 million for a truck, you kind of gotta sit back and ask some questions.
Oh, yeah.
So
Without a doubt.
and the other thing is now you're here this evening. I just want to clarify, you're here this evening to look at going into a contract to having a beginning of a build is
Yes,
what you're looking at.
correct.
The beginning of a build so that you have it by 2025. If that's what you're thinking.
It'll most likely be 2026, but
About a
yes.
3-year.
But okay,
It's a
the
3-year.
CIP.
sorry, It's a 3-year process. I didn't.
3-year
Build.
build.
3-year build,
It's a
sorry.
3-year build. No, that's fine. It's a 3-year build.
Yes.
Okay. My only concern is I'm an advocate of making sure that we have everything that we need in the town. The other thing I'm thinking about is the CIP program is a great program and it's there for a reason to save the monies each year.
Mhm.
The other thing I'm concerned with is the possibility of saving, the saving money of a new facility for the fire department.
Sure.
And saving money for that. Is there any way that we could extend that out another year to 2 years to continue to save money? And to extend it out, do you feel as though that could be done? Or do you feel as though that
This is probably not the truck to extend out. There are other vehicles that would make more sense to extend out. One thing to take into consideration, especially on this one. The last time it was on the docket was 2018 and it was under 900,000. It's just increasing incredibly fast.
Mhm.
The cost of that. There are other vehicles that we have that are in a little bit better shape than the ladder truck and also have a backup. So engine 3 is one truck that makes more sense to push out. The other thing we had discussed was taking the rescue truck instead of replacing that, giving that a full refurb. So that it is also, because it's in pretty good shape too. So those are two places we can save money just easily. And that's something we can sit down with CIP and go through all of that at that point.
And that would be roughly $650,000 that we'd be moving out to about 2030.
I don't have it in front of me. What's in the CIP for that right now?
For the
Oh, one-
ladder truck, you mean?
Yeah.
About 1.2.
1.2 is what's currently slated for that.
Patrick, this E1 company, is this all the rest of the trucks? If I remember correctly, they're all E1s, right?
That
The
is
big
correct.
trucks, yep.
In
And that's
20
all, like you said, all one manufacturer on this truck?
correct, sole source manufacturing
This is from the well.
Mhm.
This is
from Sourcewell,
Sourcewell.
correct. Yep.
So this is, I mean, they do all the work really for sourcing it out and putting all the pricing together, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
The amount of time that saves is incredible.
Right, no, I agree. I know what you're talking about.
Will this be a
So we wouldn't be getting.
firm fixed price once an order is placed with no potential for?
Yes,
So in the 3 years, there's no increase. They once
That's what I was
this is
just gonna-
signed.
Correct. So this particular manufacturer, after a contract has been signed, has never come back with a price increase to the end buyer. And we had that discussion when we purchased the engine tanker as well, because we went back and asked that question because of the situation that had happened in Wolfboro, and we'll get into in
that's-
a minute
that
with
was
the
a-
ambulance.
concern of mine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
True. And of course, this does also have a non-appropriation clause. So if we decided next year that the money wasn't available,
Mhm.
we have the ability to back out of it.
I'm just concerned also a little bit with, of course, inflationary rates, interest rates and the availability of the vehicles. Like now we're having, I don't know if it's going to get worse as time goes on. Is it going to go the other way and get better and maybe drop in price a little? I doubt it'll ever drop in price, but
Well, I'm half wondering now, like,
being the single source manufacturer, they make the chassis. They make the availability.
what I'm half wondering is in 2026, when we decide to look at this again, is this gonna be 2.5 million? And then we're gonna be sitting
That's
here
a big
going.
concern.
that's,
Right.
That's a big.
I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm having a hard time spending $1.5 million on a ladder truck, but
Mhm.
I understand where you guys are coming from and you guys have presented your case pretty well as to why, but
Mhm.
and the other flip side to this is what is this gonna cost the next time we address it? Is it gonna be,
I know, I'm,
we're gonna be sitting on a $2.5 million, $3 million fire truck?
that's,
None
So
of it's getting and none of it's
Any
getting
cheaper.
any cheaper.
I just don't know if we're starting this contract at a high end. and it'll get lower.
Is there, and I don't know this on the fire side of the thing, is there any lease options available for fire equipment where we don't have to?
So there's not necessarily like a 3-year, like use it and return it
There's
style
a
lease.
lease option.
There's a municipal lease program, which we tried before we went out to the grant with the with the taxpayers. And most of the feedback that we got was, we're a wealthy community. Why are we paying 200 and something $1,000 in interest charges? You know,
And I agree with not paying the interest, but at the price of these trucks, at some point, we're gonna have to sit back and look, especially even when it comes to our highway trucks and whatnot, eventually, these trucks are gonna get so expensive that you just can't afford to put $500,000 out to buy a 10-wheeler or $1.5 million to buy a fire truck.
Now, you had said to push, you were talking about potentially pushing one of them out for replacement.
Correct.
The refurbished cost versus the new purchase cost of that truck, what is the difference?
so the refurbishing would be the rescue truck. The trucks that we're looking to push out is purely based on usage and condition. So that was a lot of talk last year, and we do this actively. We treat this as a working document. We always have done that. Like I said, we've done it with the forestry. Based on the usage, we maintain 3 Class A pumpers, so attack pumpers. 1 at the downtown station and then 2 at each of the substations. The 2 at each substation, along with the decline in volunteerism and our call company, have seen a significantly reduced response rate over the course of the years. So with those trucks not being used as much, not spending as much time on the road, we're seeing the condition of them maintain versus needing to replace them on that hard 20-year number that's in here. So we do have the opportunity to push those out, and we're ready to do that this year when we sit with CIP. But in terms of the rescue, if I had to put a number on refurb versus purchasing new, it's probably about half.
About half to refurbish it versus buying it new.
Correct.
And the refurbish would push it out a guesstimate of how many years?
I would say that we could push that out 10 years. So we're already pushing the rescue truck out. I mean, that's a 2005. We were planning on doing a refurb in 2028. So I don't see any reason why we wouldn't be able to get 35 years out of that anyway. So,
Is that the truck to do it on?
yeah. So
That's the one?
the rescue truck sees usage, and it has a distinct purpose. It carries all of our technical rescue stuff, our motor vehicle extrication items. But it doesn't respond to every call like the engine would. Like the engine goes out on all of our fire alarm activations, all of our fires. So the rescue sees about half the usage of an engine. So that the way we have the replacement program set up for our frontline engines, that would make the most sense to push that one out.
So we could save roughly, would you say the cost of that truck was roughly? I understand.
It's tough to put numbers on it right now. If we were to replace it today, it
Yeah.
would probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of $600,000
So we'd save about half of that, $300,000
today. Yeah.
to put it towards the ladder truck is what you're saying.
Not in so many,
Not
not in so
necessarily
many
just-
words, but
Right, as savings in CIP.
not in so many words,
Oh,
it'd
I
be
understand. I'm sorry.
total appropriation to the CIP.
I understand. Yep.
It's a rock and a hard place, right?
And you're also looking to go with a larger 25-foot longer. ladder
Correct.
truck.
I've got a file in my phone full of pictures where we come up 5 feet short of our destination almost every time. Because if you think about an aerial ladder truck, this particular truck we have now is 75 feet long.
Mhm.
That's all the way up at full extension, including the height of the truck. So the actual aerial device is only about 67 feet long. So when we talk about needing reach,
Yep.
the truck's 30 feet long. If we pull in a driveway, that means we've only got 30 feet of reach beyond
Reach out to the end.
beyond the front of the truck. So again, it's not necessarily for height, it's more for reach.
I understand.
And with the 4,000 and 5,000 and 6,000 square foot houses that we have, we seem to need a fair amount of reach.
Just to add in to the discussion a little bit for the board to consider is we are, I mean, CIP, their capital reserve for equipment only.
Right.
For equipment replacement does have a substantial amount of money in it. And obviously they're planning on that 3-year build time that we're going to need, which will recoup some more of that money. But the CIP was designed to take on some of these big
Yes.
trucks.
Yes, it was.
And we have already, and we still have many years under their belt of, appropriations made year after year, 375,000 usually a year or 400. So that buildup is going to help soften that blow. And that was the intent of the program.
Well,
is
yes.
to soften
it's
that blow.
Understood. It just seems that we've had a lot of items come up on the CIP all at once. That are coming up a lot, and a lot of these things are coming up all at once, and it just seems as though that if we could stretch things out a little bit, and I think it would be, if we can at all, stretch it out a year to 2 years on some things, I think it would be to our advantage to be able to maintain and recoup.
So that's one of the big reasons why we're in such bad shape, because almost all of our trucks were purchased at the same time. So they're all failing at the same time. Now, there is a benefit to that. That means all of our staff get trained on the same truck. There isn't different variations. But I will say I completely resonate with that. I've sat on the CIP for a number of years, and this was one of one of my big things is like, how do we stretch this out? So what we've done on our side is we're trying to push the engines with that plan that I had just mentioned about pushing the engines out. We're trying to push those to 7 years. So you won't see an engine again for 7 years. And from the engine we purchased in 2020, with this particular suggestion, you won't see it again until 2027. So after that, it'll be 2030. So that way it's even, it's more spread out. Unfortunately, with the one-off vehicles like the rescue, the aerial, and those are just going to fall where they fall, unfortunately, but
yeah.
What's the cash flow of this? Do you place a substantial down payment, or they have progress payments or cash on delivery? Or
This one's set up for and cash on delivery.
And you said we could back out at any time throughout the build process.
If for some reason there is,
Something changes.
if appropriation
Yes.
does not happen at the end.
There's no down payment on this one.
How,
so there could be a down payment. Again, we had talked about that when we purchased the engine tanker, about saving a sum of money. It was like $30-something thousand, but due to the volatility of the market, we decided that maybe that's something we didn't want to do, because then that money was going to be in their bank account and kind of unsecured to some degree. So we didn't suggest that with this particular purchase. Something else that might soften the blow on this truck is as we get closer to the end and when we take delivery of this, we will still have the old truck. So the third party dealers will be more willing to provide us a number without 3 years of uncertainty. So when we get to the end, when we get to the final purchase, we may be able to negotiate a trade-in, but it'll have to be right at the end because they're going to want to give us a number based on its present condition.
And do you have any idea what it's worth in its present condition right now?
Well, we purchased it for 75,000. And I anticipate that we should be able to recuperate that. But again, it's 3 years and a lot of uncertainty between now and then.
Well, and nobody in their right mind is gonna give you a price today
Right.
for a
That's the
truck
problem.
3 years down the road. That's
curious what it's worth
that's not
today.
good business any way you look at it.
Sure.
But a lot of money. I'm just afraid of what it's gonna look like down the road.
well, true. But I just know that right now we're at the extreme high on everything. And we know the economy is not going in a very good direction.
Is it possible to go down and look at these trucks and see the one that you wanna, that you'd like to push out to, and just check it out? Cause
course, yeah.
if something were to happen and, you wanna look at it and see if you could get that extra
You
300,
can go down there anytime you want.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
very much have an open door policy. We'll take anybody in anytime. We do tours for families and kids whenever. So
Okay.
no worries.
I just was curious. I wanna see the truck that you wanna push out and see what kind of shape it's in, how it works.
And what's the balance with current appropriation?
So the balance with the current appropriation is 1.7.
1.7 now.
Reminding you that there's still $800,000 to be expended for our engine tanker. Next or in a year and a half when that's delivered.
That's already
So,
paid for, right?
just-
Is not
No,
paid for.
That's not.
So that contract's there. So that leaves about 900,000 sitting in there. In the next 2 years, we're slated for appropriations between 425 and 450 each year, or I think 450 and 475 over the next 2 years. To make up that difference. That's the current plan, which obviously the plan gets updated every year.
But that also brings up the point, and I know that the board has seen and talked about equipment replacements within the last 6 months to a year, and it seems like we're buying stuff all right now.
Yeah.
But when you start listening to what the contract dates are,
Mhm.
trucks are actually very spread out, even though we're trying to take a proactive
Right.
approach to getting these trucks ordered because of so many significant delays in production.
Mhm.
That's why we, like it was only 6 months ago or whatever, they were talking about that engine, but on
Engine
your
2 was
contract,
2 years.
that's coming in a year and a half. The ladder truck still is not going to come for 3 years. So even though that, you know what I'm saying? It seems like the conversations and what the public's listening to are back to back and they're close. But in reality, the build times are spread out so that we're still trying to hit that determined space between replacements as recommended by CAP.
That contract date that you would sign, that would not be pushed forward, like they would not give us the truck sooner, right? It would be the 3 years, we'd be all set in the 3 years.
It
It'd be
may,
longer if anything, probably.
if anything,
Okay.
they could potentially push it. It wouldn't necessarily show up sooner. I never see that.
Never see that come earlier.
Right.
I just wouldn't want a surprise.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, this date, the 3 years is actually newer. It was 2.5 years. At one of our last meetings a few months ago, and it just, as other people are ordering, things are just getting pushed further back.
Mhm.
And their increases are typically 10% at a time.
What's your time frame as far as needing to place an order?
So thankfully, they've moved to a quarterly price increase structure, or that's the rumor. I haven't seen what the structure is going to be. So if a decision isn't necessarily made tonight, and again, this is not for pressure, and it's only because you asked, if a decision isn't made tonight, there's a fair chance it's going to go up with Q2. And it seems like some of the manufacturers are moving that direction, so that way there isn't so much question. And again, we'll talk about this with the
That way
ambulance.
it's not hanging in limbo. You've got
Correct.
it
The
back.
dealers are giving accurate numbers when they quote vehicles.
And the inflation of these, myself, I went to look at a dump truck the other day and when I bought it in 2019, it was 208,000. It's 330,000 for the same truck, set up the same way now. So where's this gonna go?
Literally, that's the same position we're with the ambulance.
I'm not trying to, I'm $1.5 million. We could outfit half the highway garage with new trucks to that.
Mm-hmm.
But I do understand that fire trucks are a little different than
Of
regular
course,
truck.
of course.
I don't believe you're gonna see that number go down.
Right, no, I agree. with
No,
you. I do
no.
agree with you on that.
It's probably not gonna go down, but
Right. This is a decision to be made. Who wants to make it?
yeah.
It would be an easy decision if it wasn't a life or death type of piece of equipment.
Well, of course, of course, of course.
I agree.
And when we do get it, you're thinking of the next replacement in 20 or more years.
It'll be probably at least 25, based on Alton's particular experience with aerial apparatus and its usage. We've been reliably getting about 25 to 30 years out of a truck, but when we crest that 30-year mark, things become a lot more uncertain. So I would suggest no more than 30.
I would say probably plan in the 15-year mark, a rehab of some sort, just to make sure it's gonna make that 30 or 25.
Does the contract have any penalty clauses for late delivery?
We can dig into that certainly.
I don't think they'll allow it.
So a lot of
Right.
a lot of the verbiage that we've experienced with that, and we experienced this with the boat, comes back to third-party vendors. So I don't want to say anybody's being malicious, but if something gets pushed, it's usually blamed on a third-party vendor, if that makes sense.
That's what happened with
It's
the
always
boat
somebody-
motors.
always somebody else's fault.
Yeah.
Your guesstimate is a 10% hike
In terms of.
in terms
increase,
of the end of the quarter.
That's before they went to these quarterly, so it's.
What was the last quarterly hike?
They've just started.
Yeah.
Oh, they
It's-
just
It's
started.
a rumor. I have not seen the structure. But I was just told that
Of
they're
a
gonna move.
10% increase.
So
10% was their last increase. Now
That
it's
was the
going
last
quarterly.
Increase.
it
When was
could
that?
be-
When was their last increase is what I meant, sorry.
that was-
I believe it was in December 1st of the year.
First of
Is
the
when we
year
got
was,
the numbers the last time.
And I just want to point out that I think he's mentioned a couple of times about the ambulance discussion, the next one.
Mhm.
That's just a good example of, he's talking about we approved the purchase of an ambulance, and by the time it got cycled back around and went to sign the contract, the next memo you're going to look at
Mhm.
is they made a $7,000 price change between the time that we had the meeting
Mhm.
and to get a contract signed. Because we had some weeks between the meetings.
So
That's just how quick things are.
that's a smaller number than this, so that increase would be substantial.
Yeah, oh yeah, that ambulance was a $434,000 piece of equipment. On $1.5 million, that would have been at least $40,000 or $50,000 probably.
the number that we had 20th of January was 1.474.
1.474, and right now it's at 1.518.
Yeah.
Yep. It's a big nut.
But there is option to, if the funds aren't there, to back out of the situation, if the money isn't in the account, right?
Yeah.
This would
They
just start
gave
the
you that
process.
option.
Well, and that being
There's
said, and
trust.
I mean, stop me if I'm wrong on this, but the way these things are rolling out in line. If something did happen and we couldn't buy it, I'm pretty sure they're not gonna have trouble getting rid of it.
They would almost happily cancel our contract
Yeah.
because they would
They would
increase.
sell it for more money.
They'd sell it for more money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is probably that Wolfboro situation was more or less, if we don't give it to you, we'll sell it for more.
So if, I mean, if
Because it's
2 years
available
down the road, we
today.
decide we can't afford this truck, we can
Still.
at least back out of it.
So we should, I mean,
But this way it gets the ball rolling.
Does
is
get the
how I'm
ball
looking
rolling.
At it, and if we decide down the road, well, if you guys decide down the road that you don't want this truck, you can back out of the contract is the way I'm looking at it.
so
But if we
Clear.
do decide it,
Money's
if
lost.
we do decide it, is there, yeah, but not if there's no money put down on it. I don't think we have to put money down on it.
no.
You're not putting anything down now?
No.
So there's no money that would be lost. should
So
we
it's,
back
it's,
out.
it's a non-appropriation clause. So if the money doesn't get appropriated,
Right, that's what I,
so basically if CIP fails, CIP collapses.
you can go back and say, hey, we don't have the money to fund this project.
So
When would they expect first payment?
On delivery.
On delivery, we
Full
pay for the
amounts
whole
on
thing.
it.
on
3
the
years.
So they'll do this whole under just contract, under just a contract and no monies.
yeah, so no
Transact.
money.
Right, like I said, it doesn't matter if they build it and we don't take it,
Mhm.
they'll just cancel it and sell it to somebody else for more money than they gave it to us.
Well,
Most
that
likely.
changes.
I guess I'll make the motion to sign the contract to get it started. Get the ladder truck started.
Can the,
We're gonna need a dollar amount.
Oh,
town of
sorry about
administrator
that.
sign in your.
Sorry
place?
about that.
Oh, yeah, and authorizing me to sign.
So I make a motion that we let Ryan sign the contract in the amount of $1,518,060 for the purchase of a new ladder truck with a estimated arrival date in 3 years. Do I have a second?
A second.
Discussion.
We're all sitting around because it's a huge chunk of money. The alternatives are not attractive.
I do like the idea of being able to possibly, if it's not there.
Well, that makes a little bit of a difference that we don't have to do this now. Pay up front at this point, to start making payments on it. And it also makes a difference that we could back out at any time. As long as that's in the contract, I mean, and it's signed,
We'll confirm that that's there.
if you can confirm that.
And just to clarify, the non-appropriations, we can back out if the funding doesn't pass. The board
You
wouldn't
can't just
have.
back up.
Right.
You just can't
Yeah,
back up. 'cause all of a
yeah,
sudden you don't
yeah,
want-
yeah.
Yes, right.
Right,
Yeah.
but if there's the appropriation clause obviously covers which is the main concern, if CIP, like you said, fails or the townspeople decide that we're gonna end up going to default and we're not gonna fund the CRFs, then we
That
may end up
changes
short.
things.
That's the big concern.
Then that was not appropriate.
Right, exactly. Then we'll be all set on that. I just wanted to make sure that we were
No,
all
I
clear for the
understand.
public on that.
Just like the idea of not having to put any money out just in case something like that happens. I mean, it's 3-year lead time.
Is the nature of the fire apparatus business such that if someone orders a new piece of equipment, as long as it's fairly standard, and then reneges or on the backside of the contract, there's no big deal with selling it to somebody else, even if you're in a major recession?
I would say currently, yes.
Currently.
In the past, no. In the past, they would sit on that. But right now, because of the 3-year lead times, when somebody's in a point where they need a truck, they're gonna spend more money to get that truck now because it's available.
So there's a slight risk, but it's very slight.
Gentlemen, I don't want any hard feelings. I'm a no on this, just so you guys know ahead of time. I think that it probably is a need. I just don't know if it's a need right now. And it's not anything like that, but I mean, the gentleman here seemed to.
And I hate to say, I'm on the same, I'm on the fence, but I feel as though that this is a big expense. And I'd really like to see us if we could extend it just a little longer. We have a lot of other CIP things that are coming up and things that we're thinking about for the new facility. I'm weighing on the side of caution a little bit. And I think that I'm
Just to remind you guys, you wanted us to come with.
Yeah.
You wanted a
Oh,
5-year
this was-
plan.
we understand that.
And you said you wanted to add $250,000 extra to our CIP every year to come back
Yes,
in this
absolutely.
5-year plan.
I think it's important.
And I honestly, I would feel better if all the money was sitting right here, right now.
Mr. Chairman, I will say, we've been getting a lot of pushback with the amount of money that's in our CIP.
No, and I agree with that. I do agree with that. I'm not 100% sure if this is the right time to be spending $1.5 million on a truck that we have that can do the same job already.
I'm really concerned where this economy is going.
I agree with that.
It's not any, you guys have done a remarkable job here. You're putting this together. It's not anything to do with that. I mean, we have one fire truck that's scheduled to be brought in now that we haven't purchased yet. Like you said, it was what, 800,000?
Mhm.
And maybe come this time next year, we look at it and say, okay, the scare of us going bottoms up here and there was some sort of a recession is gonna go away, which we probably won't, but.
Mhm.
But there's still
There's no question you worked very hard on this. You've done a lot of research. You always do. You're professional. And the CIP program is a great program and we got to continue it. But sometimes it makes sense to maybe extend things out if we can.
but don't take me for it. You guys don't call me out. It's not it's just me saying that. So
I'm
there's
done
a
with,
motion and a second on the floor. So if there's no more discussion. All those in favor?
no.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could, because this is gonna come back up in CIP, and if we don't attach a date to this,
Mhm.
that money is gonna disappear, which is what happened in 2018. It's gonna disappear from the appropriation. What year would you like to move this to?
Currently it's 2025 or 26.
Currently, it is 2026 or 2025.
2025. 2027.
I don't,
I'd say even if just a year.
Yeah, 2026.
I don't have a
Yeah.
problem with relooking at it next year. I just don't think right now is
Right,
the time.
Let's relook at it next year. or extend it to 2026, whichever.
We are currently, we're projecting that 4 quarters from now, based on your best current estimate, what kind of price increase?
Based on the numbers that we had gotten last year at about this time, we're at 1.2 million. So it's gone up $300,000 in a year. So I would anticipate a similar increase
Well, something changes drastically.
unless something changes drastically.
And our lead time would still be 3 years if we vote on it.
It'll be
that
tough to
changes.
come up with that number.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you that in a year.
Guys are still here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ambulance.
Yeah.
Fire department ambulance price increase.
Following our last meeting, we sat down with the manufacturer to sign the purchase documents and he notified us that there was a significant increase in chassis pricing for the purchase of the ambulance. We went back to our spec and we eliminated a sum of money out of our spec for what we considered some items that we could potentially do without or install ourselves after the fact. With that being said, we came to an agreement and we actually do not need any additional funding for this.
Yeah,
So
we had taken some money out and then basically we told him that's all we're taking out, figure it out. And he was able to maintain the original price.
but now by doing that, is it shortchanging you guys on this piece of it?
I don't think so.
Can you,
And yeah, we didn't take a full 7,000 out. We took a little less than that out. We made him make up the difference out of whatever his deal is. And some of this is like a fit and finish type of stuff that we will be perfectly fine without.
well, if you, I mean, right now's the time, if you do need it, that we can make that up as far as, because that we already have coming.
Correct.
But we need to outfit it and I don't want to shortchange on that part of it.
That would be the decision of the board.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, if you guys think you can make it work the way you got it, then.
I do think we can make it work the way we got it.
Fair enough.
When I first wrote this, I wasn't
You
thinking that.
sure?
We basically had a few back and forths. And he wants our business, so. We're waiting for him to finalize the contract so it can be signed. The original contract is not signed yet, so.
This would.
So the original motion for the approved price is good.
Yep, it's gonna be the same price. And you're
Okay.
still gonna
Sign.
sign. We're just waiting for the contract to get
Yeah.
Okay.
drawn up with the changes.
Sure.
Okay,
So really, we were gonna pull this, but we wanted to make sure you were aware
okay,
that we were able to do that.
thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
What? Does the board have any problems if we change the order on old business and bump up the short-term rentals? So we can get, the planner can go
no,
home?
I have no problem with that.
This is
No problem.
all right.
Nope. No.
Go ahead, Jessica.
Sorry, Jeff.
That's okay. That's gonna.
Scott's gonna sleep here anyways.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, questions.
Good evening.
Amy, Jessica.
I'd like to say welcome aboard to our two new selectmen.
Sue.
Congratulations. I don't know if Ryan wanted to lead this
Sure.
conversation or not, or how you wanted to go about it.
So just to start off, before Jessica takes over, letting you know, we're bringing this back up. So what you have in your book, you have a short-term rental application and permit. This was given to the other board members prior to for you to look at and digest. These were just examples pulled from other communities and towns. John had compiled them together with Jess, because what needs to happen, so the short-term rental ordinance got passed now. Before, when we looked at this, it hadn't been passed yet, so it was more of an FYI. So now that it's passed, it's going to be up to the board, in conjunction with, information from planning and the code enforcement officer, to come up with an application process plus an ordinance that is going to outline what is allowed, what isn't allowed for this particular short-term housing. And that's where this is going to fall to the board now to develop this. We waited in particularly to this meeting because obviously I wanted to get the two new board members up to speed with the documentation, the background on it. And then Jessica can shed some light on the many emails she's been fielding as far as questions and concerns on how this new ordinance is going to be handled and permitted and enforced. So those are really the big issues is how we're going to permit it, what the ordinance is going to have for restrictions or conditions, but also the enforcement component under that.
Who's gonna police this?
Yeah, well, it's going to be a conjunction of, if we have a town ordinance, it will be in conjunction with code enforcement would be a big enforcement factor of the conditions, but the backup to that would be the police department, because under town ordinances, we can still cite, can still take to court for issues like that too. But it really will start because code enforcement has similar powers under local ordinance involving housing. He can, he's taken court action before. And our prosecutor down at the police department can help with that, and also the police department as needed for that. So those were but we have to set up what those conditions are that we will enforce under. So there's the gist of it all. Well,
Right, so
Jessica,
that was a short story. We've actually been working on a form of an ordinance for, I'd say, at least a good 2 years,
years.
like plus. So this is a long time coming. And as Ryan was stating, the code official can kind of regulate the land, and it's up to the selectmen to sort of regulate the people, more or less. So there was this draft application for a short-term rental permit that we kind of gathered together. And I did pass out pretty much, it's a compilation of questions that I've received.
Okay.
That I feel that either fall under the selectmen to come up with answers for, or code official. So if you guys really haven't had a chance to review this, and obviously you guys are new, so it probably would be best to take the time, review the draft permit that was provided and questions, because it's lengthy.
There's a lot.
It is.
There's so many
This is
questions.
just been this past week.
Yep.
Mhm.
So
past few days.
I feel that, definitely take the time to review this and
Oh, also,
come up with some answers, discuss it again. And you also have the option of our planning and zoning consultant who we had hired to assist us to draft the ordinance, Tara Bamford. She's also available to chime in. Once you guys maybe get some answers to some of these questions and try to figure out what gets added to this permit. That
Yeah.
will help assist, guide applicants to know, what to do and sort of what not to do.
We have a
Um,
time frame for this, or is there a point where we're obligated to do something, or is it just? a
Not as of
matter
yet.
When we finally figure out what's gonna work.
Right. So there's no time frame, but I would recommend, the sooner the better. So you're talking for this permit to kind of go live. I mean, that's up to you guys on how soon this gets together.
Yeah, I would say my recommendation,
Yeah.
we do work on this, make it a priority because of the fact that the ordinance, I should say, the zoning change is now in effect. So if we start having applicants, we're already having, that's where these questions are coming
Well, they
from,
want to know.
is applicants are already,
Right.
coming in preparation for short-term rentals, or they're looking to purchase properties currently that to be used as short-term rentals. The only thing is if it drags out too long, then you might have people that are actually going to be able to move forward with their short-term rentals without
Without a guidance.
guideline and
Without a
price, and then they're gonna be grandfathered because they're not gonna have the same permit system if we wait 6 months.
So instead of doing a grace period, go over this as quickly as, because I was, just so you know, I was also on the committee for the short-term rentals. And yeah, sooner that we come up with a plan as far as
Mhm.
when it's in effect, what the fee is.
Right.
And so on and so forth.
Right. How long do people have to come into compliance? You know,
Yeah.
sort of, how do we get the word out there?
When's our
There's
next-
a bunch of questions on there.
Our next meeting is, what's 2 weeks out? 17th.
should we have a-
So I can either, attend the 17th as well,
What's that?
as long as I can attend on the 17th.
If you like, if you feel that.
To
we
answer
can-
that, or I can try to see if maybe Tara is available.
I think we got a little bit of time before people
It
start
just,
hitting up the summer rentals.
I mean, there are people that are already booked for the year. Yeah,
If we could get,
Yeah.
I don't want to overstep my boundaries here. I just think if we can get a hold of Tara Bamford, if she could come to the next meeting. Or talk to us in the next meeting, or before that. So that we can make final decisions on this, or even have a workshop.
right. Obviously, there's going to be a
Quick
rough
workshop.
patch to get this implemented. I mean, that's a huge undertaking.
A one meeting workshop or something like that, that we can go over this a little more in detail with you. That makes sense to anybody?
No, I don't have a problem with it. I would think-
I think
Maybe
that's a
it'll
good
bring light
idea.
I think we should do that, to be honest with
This
you.
is a mouthful.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It is-
oh, yeah.
it is.
It's. I don't think it can be made bad, or it can be made easier. I think we can handle this in a pretty timely fashion, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I hope you're right.
Yeah.
Well, then that way, if
We hammered this out.
Yeah.
It's not- I'm half wondering if the castle's not gonna get stormed after this. With people going, why the hell do I have this piece of property and I can't do what I want?
The sooner we get it done, the
well,
better.
the other thing is if we do have it as a special workshop designated for this issue, then it would also allow the people that are concerned about it, that are already reaching out, to be here and be present
Yes,
and not be an entire agenda.
yes.
Because it is a hot button issue.
And it might
I think it's,
They have all while we're sitting here instead of,
Mhm.
I think it's warranted.
yeah, no, I agree.
And maybe we can set up a time too for where the consultant can be here as well. That would be,
Okay.
I think that would be helpful. Because I'm sure she has some great guidance.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so if you want, if it pleases the board, if you want to go in that direction, then what I can do is I can communicate with Jessica so she can find out what the consultant's availability is. And instead of trying to set a date today, we find out what that works, and then Stacy and I will reach out to you guys. And
Well, I think it'll help the new.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Or just understanding what is even going on.
And everybody get a chance to digest this a little
Like
bit.
Richard said,
and then
this
get
is-
together.
this is a mouthful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. Like we spent
mean-
years on this.
We spent a long time on it, yes.
so
Perfect.
Okay.
So why don't we do that?
that's good. We'll proceed in that direction.
Thank you.
Sounds
Dave.
good.
Thank you.
You're still
Thank you,
here.
I am.
That's right. It's-
Yes, I actually hope people actually decide to sit down and actually read this, because there was a lot of hard work put into this.
There was.
The the master plan committee did a very, very good job. And if you actually sit down and read it, it's actually, there's some good information. And this being said, I know half the people just take this book and don't, but if you read it, I think you'll find some stuff in there that's.
A lot of time and a lot of time and effort went into this, to this whole program.
You guys did an awesome job on it.
And
I know you
Thank
two
you.
were involved in it and it was, you guys did a real good job.
my hat is off to Jessica. You did a good job and with the whole thing from the beginning. It was over 2 years, 2.5, almost 2.5 years in the
Yes.
making.
Yep, the master plan. So I just wanted to kind of make a big deal of this tonight because it is a big deal. We, as a committee, had over 35 meetings. And that didn't include additional workshops and the public hearing with the planning board. We had quite a great crew, lost a few along the way, but we fought through it. You know, we all worked hard and, you know, I just wanted to publicly thank all the members of the master plan committee and to thank the selectmen for, you know, your support. It was a very important document. The planning board has, like I mentioned earlier, committed the master plan committee to be a standing committee to meet for the first time throughout the year, 30 days after the town elections, and then 6 months after that. So they'll be meeting at a minimum of twice per year, going through the checklist, the sections in this master plan, the blue section, the sort of the recommendations into, you know, how to implement the suggested, you know, items listed in here. So then that way, it doesn't sit on the shelf and it doesn't collect dust.
Yep.
Have you heard back from any of the committee members as far as wanting to stay?
I haven't yet, so I need to come up with some sort of, you know, committee guidelines, like we did for CIP and for Zach, just to have some sort of outline and like the mission of the committee. And get a feel from the planning board as to, you know, who they would like to sit on it again. And then from that point, I'll reach out to, you know, the prior committee members to see if they're still interested in sitting on it. So, yep, baby steps. So that was it, really.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you, Jess, and Paul, you as well. Thanks for you guys.
Thank you.
And the rest of the committee for all the hard work you guys did on this.
Thank you very much. It's really appreciated.
Came out
Thank
very
you,
well.
Jessica.
All right, have a good night.
Thank you. Thanks for hanging around.
All right. Public Works Department. Waterfront sidewalk update.
Great. Good evening. Congratulations, gentlemen, and
Thank you.
becoming a selectman. My condolences.
I think.
Someone, it's a tough job, so thank you, Bob. You were in Florida. Your service. What? So on the sidewalk front, put together a memo here. Giving you a little bit of an update on the schedule, what we're looking at. It's fairly aggressive in putting this together. I've been working with folks there with Jack and the crew there and Courtney and I've been meeting regularly to go over different projects and how they're being managed, and then going forward as to how we're gonna try to stay on top of these. But this is pretty important because we have a timeline and a deadline that we want to make sure we get this wrapped up and completed by. Feel very confident with our current slate of contractors in order to accomplish that. So basically what we'd like to do is want to make sure the select board was on board here relative to, because it is such a high visibility area, that we will be closing the sidewalks at the bay, with the exception of the immediate area in front of Shibley's Restaurant. Those bricks will remain in place until we're right before the time in which we're going to actually start forming up and actually doing the sidewalks themselves. So we don't have a, interruption there with their business and foot traffic. After reviewing it, we talked about making temporary bridges and walkways, and we felt that for safety purposes, it would be a lot safer just to leave what we have
Absolutely.
intact. And just use the necessary barricades in order to do that. We've already acquired the erosion control for all the back edge of the sidewalks themselves, because there will be, once we pull the bricks up, there will be exposed soil. And also when we back up that new sidewalk, we'll end up having to do some loam and seed, and then we'll mat that. We have enough on hand to be able to go ahead and mat that to establish growth. Because we know that people are going to be using the sidewalks immediately. And we know we're not going to be able to keep them off that, so they're going to be walking on it. So we figure with the mat there, we'll be able to hopefully get some growth established as well. So we will put the PD's message board sign up. I've already had a conversation with Lieutenant. And basically just waiting for tonight's meeting to brief you folks on it. Make sure you didn't have any concerns. Then we'll post in the Bay parking lot itself that the sidewalks will be, start to be closed. That will cause some interruptions, I believe, depending on how fast the remaining ice in the bay goes out relative to boat traffic on the boat docks. In that, we're hoping that the weather will hold with us. We're in the process right now of replacing all the benches on the boat docks. That project is underway by the grounds and maintenance staff. So they've all been demoed and removed, all the old seats. We've come up with a new design to plate the junctions with steel plates and be able to, that way when we need to replace them in the future, we don't have to go into a
Good.
elaborate way that they were dovetailed before. So, so that's underway on that side of it. I did make a note in here, that we will be after tonight's meeting, having a discussion with the other property owners down there and abutters now that town vote has transpired. Because this is part of a big project for the whole parking lot, because we're gonna do the sidewalks, we're gonna do curb, sidewalks. Make sure we get everything stabilized that way, and then we'll be looking at, we're also, while we're there, we'll be taking care of the structures themselves. There's 4 drainage structures in the immediate town portion of the parking lot. Those will be actually cut out, and then they'll be remortared and reset. So we saw some deterioration going on, so we'll make sure those are in good shape. We'll also make sure that all the outflows are in proper condition, because it's a siphon outflow pipes that are on those. So we'll make sure that those are in good order that way. So should be in good shape, and hopefully have everything wrapped up for the 12th, and then have some discussions with those abutting property owners relative to the resurfacing of the parking lot and the pavilion parking lot as well. So, and that likely will take place, I'm guessing, probably after Labor Day.
Okay.
Because I think that it would be too intrusive, and we would be biting off way more than we can chew to make sure this happens.
Makes sense.
As you know, the town administrators had some conversation with town council in regards to that, and because we're gonna ask for those abutters to help, well, they're
Yes.
gonna pay their portion.
Yes.
Because there is some common area that is in between the town piece and
Yep.
theirs. They
There is.
actually do own some parking spots out front. They actually own some frontage. So we'll work with our paving contractor, which we have now, with that bid. We'll tighten that number up, and then we'll go to those folks there, and then in working with the town administrator, we'll work towards agreements with the budding property owners to secure their hopefully their cooperation. Support.
That's why I'm here.
And cooperation.
Their support in the whole project, and not only they want to support it, but they want to monetarily support it.
Right.
I mean, it benefits all their businesses.
It's
there.
going to benefit everybody all around.
Yeah,
Who
So-
currently has the paving contract?
GMI has a paving contract. Yep. So we'll work with them on that. I've already had a discussion with them during the last year and getting estimates as to what that cost would be, and then figuring out what the cost would be on a per square foot basis for the other properties that are adjoining. So we basically, as you remember probably, Nick, that we own to the middle of that drainage. Cut the swale that's in the middle there and their front, so. Trying to get that squared away. So just want to make sure you're on board with that. Hopefully we will stay on task here. Mother Nature will cooperate with us. We're not,
Yeah.
won't be out plowing snow like we were Friday
We'll
night,
stay.
Saturday morning.
We'll say that.
And that we're moving forward to spring,
Yep.
that side, so. But it should be a good project and hopefully everybody that utilizes the bay will appreciate it.
Looking forward.
And we're all done,
Good.
so.
You have a great crew. Looking forward. Thank you.
You bet.
All right. Next up is the Public Works Department Solid Waste Center Recycling Building Award.
So we have that, we have put the project out for RFP. We received one RFP back, response back on the design build for that, and have that information in your packet as well. I also provided you in your packet with the little bit of background information because it had been brought up and was part of the RFP to make sure that we determined the thickness of the slab in which the structure will be built on. And at the time of our pre-bid or pre-proposal meeting, we did not have that information. We now have that. It's a 10-inch slab. 6 test drills were done through that slab itself, so we're able to make that determination. So we feel very confident the structure certainly will support as what has been proposed. You also have the number in there as to what, because that was an insurance situation with a building collapse during the December 23rd storm event that we had. And Primex has provided their basic number here. Initially, it had been lower, but they did review what we had for a proposal and then went back through it and came up with a new number, which was about 20,000 in our favor, which was, I felt was good for their situation to support the project and make sure we had the proper structure and that was safe and not going to be running the risk of any type of a similar type issue in the future. So we have put this together, breaking that down with the cost of the actual project itself, and then also with what the amount will be for the insurance, and then what the difference is. And that difference amount would come from the recycling revolving account to pay for that difference. I think the value of the difference is very good. And
I think so.
well warranted. We will have, if in fact the board does approve this contractor for this project, we will have some conversations with them as well as far as the structure that's still there, possibly providing a price quote and possible change order to come back before the board to have them look at re-siding and re-trimming that
Good.
building as well. So that would make that entire structure for the exterior of the building to be completely maintenance free.
Yep.
So that's what we're trying to work towards, is maintenance free as much as possible on a lot of the structures.
So am I reading this right? It's 36 by 40.
Yeah, the actual structure itself is, I think it's actually 37 by 40. There's a 1 foot overhang there on the actual eve overhang.
That close to what we had before.
That's the exact same
Exact
size.
same size.
Yep, using the same footprint. The only thing different would be that the posts that supported the overhang for the in the recycling area where people deposited, that will actually have frost post all put in underneath that. We'll dig the pavement out and put frost posts in.
Closing in the gable end and putting the overhead doors in is what's gonna make all the difference in the world with any wind
Yeah.
situation.
Protect.
Header and keeping it.
Yeah, we did. I mean, you'll notice that in the old structure, it was all rough studs inside.
mhm.
This will actually be sheathed on the inside to gain that added support that way. So. The
Yeah,
steel
'cause
and-
I mean, that at least this time it's gonna be, because we're lucky we got away with what we got away with on that. And there wasn't anybody there.
Is there extra bumpers around the beams?
Have already, we have talked about actually in and around those, not sonotube, but frost posts there and actually putting in culvert pipe around those so that there actually is a buffer, collar that would come up. So,
In the lion share, this is coming from our insurance anyway.
Yeah,
correct. Yeah, about
Yeah.
122,000.
Yeah, and the rest comes out of the
20.
revolving fund.
27,637 is what we're coming up with,
Right.
And that,
Oh.
like I said, that comes out of the revolving fund.
the revolving fund, and the total cost of the project is 149,828.
All right.
I looked at the contract is pretty good and standard.
Thank
And
you.
material being used and everything is all good.
I thought it was a very good
I did.
fair price, for based upon the materials that were being used and making sure that it was a, pretty much a maintenance free structure, you know.
That's you
And
guys.
the
field of
electrical,
expertise.
they're gonna have the electrical contractor go in there and do the necessary
Yep,
lights and
that's
outlets
part.
and receptacles and
Be all LED lighting in the interior, ceiling area, GFI outlets and the
Mhm.
exterior walls to make sure we're all covered that way. It'll be a tie-in. They'll rough everything in and then we'll work with them to do the tie-in. All the electrical services there. We just terminated it back at the old, or the main structure at the junction box.
Good.
It's easy tie-in.
All right. I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve Triple Construction LLC of Hudson, New Hampshire. To construct for the sorry,
Oh.
the solid
recycling.
waste facility building to be constructed. For the sum of 149,828.
122, 190 from.
Yes, 122,190 will be reimbursed from Primex. And the remaining balance of $27,637.94 to be taken from the recycling revolving account.
Second.
Discussion.
Time frame, Scott?
Initially, we wanted to have everything done before Memorial Day, but right now, because there's a little bit of delay in getting everything out, we're looking at probably an additional 45 to 60 days. So it'll be during the summer. The company and I've talked with the project manager. And told them about the facility being closed, of course, on the Tuesday through Thursday. They'll focus the majority of their work during those 3 days and work, long days or whatever. Try to do as much as they can on this project during that time frame, so that it's not intrusive. They may still do some stuff there, of course, but not running equipment around and that kind of stuff. So we'll try to do as much of that during the time that the facility's closed.
Perfect. Okay. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We gotta vote on it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'll do that. in the TA. You're gonna stick
All
around.
right, selectmen's reports. Mr. Shea. Mr. Bonavane.
Also nothing.
Mr. Moss.
Nothing.
Mr. Larochelle.
Not at this time.
I would, I'd like to formally welcome both our new selectmen here.
Welcome.
And
Welcome, gentlemen.
thank Bob for
The years of
for
service.
the years of service that he's put towards us, and Ruben as well. I appreciate it. Everybody appreciates it, because there's not a line of people out the front door waiting to sign up to do this stuff, so.
You
we
can always
appreciate
re-up.
everybody that's done it, and thank you. And thank you, gentlemen, for stepping up and.
Look forward to it. Bob, I'm gonna need your help with Old Home Week.
Especially,
gonna need your help with Old Home Week,
especially the car show, right?
the car show mostly. Yeah.
All right, town administrator report.
My turn. On your table, just to start out, you see that there is a court decision from the Board of Tax and Land Appeals. So this just came down, it's official court order regarding the resolution of a case brought against the town by DRA. We're discussing this under my report so that we discussed them. Obviously, it's a final court order. It's a public matter. So the DRA, along with some other communities that have Masonic lodges, brought a suit to the Board of Land and Tax Appeals regarding the exemption of the Masonic temple. The Masonic Association, I'm sorry, all of them, not just particularly in Alton. The DRA's claim was that we had exempted them since 2003. The town of Alton had a court decision in 2003 that said they were exempt. So the town of Alton was following a court order. And from that portion on, we had exempted the lodge here in Alton under their taxes as being a nonprofit. And the exemption status was based off the information that they had provided. Well, the DRA felt differently and had brought suit against every town that had, many of the towns that had Masonic lodges in them. We did go to this hearing that they are ruling on. Actually, Drew was there with me, and Bob at the time was there as well. So we provided testimony, we provided, the assessor brought it back information. So the nutshell, the result of the order is that the Board of Tax and Land Appeal has declared that they find that the Masonic Lodge is not exempt. That it's they claim it's a fraternal organization, and based on the information in this order, they are ordering the town to tax the Masonic Lodge back to 2021. Not going back any further. The Masonic Lodge has already been taxed for 2022 based on the preliminary order. So there'll be some paperwork here tonight. I'll get to in a minute. There's a copy of three pieces of paper. But the important part of this order, and anybody can read this order if they want to, is posted down in the clerk's office. But the part that I really wanted to get out, and I know the board is aware of this, but for the general public, this was a claim that was brought by DRA, not by the town of Alton against the Masonic Lodge. It was DRA against the town of Alton regarding the Masonic Association. This order pertains to what the BTLA has said that the town of Alton needs to do. But the appeal rights are preserved for the Masonic Lodge. So the Masonic Lodge has every right still to appeal or abate the tax bills at this point in time. So with that said, I want to make, like I said, I want to make it clear mainly for the people at home and any board members that weren't aware of that. But there are three pieces of paper that we will have to get the signature of the board. I agree. And on the last 3 pages of this order, you'll see these are town forms. So the first one is a checklist that our assessor has created for exemptions, charitable exemptions. But under recommendations to the Board of Selectmen, you will see per BTLA decision of 3/29/23. He is recommending that you sign this as a denial for their, this is the 2022 tax bill that we sent out.
As you know, and
Yes.
as the rest of the board, I won't be signing this. It's a conflict of interest for me, and I'm not gonna be involved in it.
Right,
So
okay.
you gentlemen can handle it.
So you're formally recusing yourself.
I am refusing myself.
Okay. Thank you. I just did that for the record. So the recommendation again, I'm going to put this out on all 3 documents. So the other one is again, is per the decision of the BTLA. It says that the charter does not raise to the definition of charitable in RSA 7223. Any public charter use is voluntary and as such does not qualify for exemption. Again, those are words from the order, the BTLA. So again, recommendation is a denial based on the order. And then this last one is a tax bill for 2021 that will have to be sent out to the Masonic Lodge again under order per the court decision. And again, gentlemen, obviously the board has a decision as they want to or not, but again, I have to stress the fact that this is per court order. If we do not comply with it, it is in defiance of an order from the BTLA. So, and again, for the public, I want them to understand what's taking place as far as this all being public, public knowledge, matter of record, but making sure that they understand all the process that goes along with it. So with that said, does anybody have any questions on this?
You have any other exposures? Other organizations?
For exemptions? Yes, we do. We have about roughly, and this is approximate, but last I knew it was approximately 22 to 23 properties or organizations that file for exemption each year under the nonprofit exemption.
Be or should very detailed examination based on.
Yes.
Might be effective.
Yes, I will say this, the other organizations don't have a similar organizational structure than the Masonic Lodge, but that first page in this charitable exemption qualification checklist was what was developed with town council upon initial notice of this lawsuit and this issue. Our assessor and town council came up with this checklist so that it will be followed for every exemption process moving forward. So that everything is thoroughly reviewed, and not that it wasn't thoroughly reviewed before. It's not that they didn't show or weren't showing a charitable donation. It was there. And if you read through and anybody reads through the order, it's they're going back to what the charitable documents are for the fraternal organization, that the charitable function of it is voluntary on them and not mandatory. And there's, some discrepancy.
So they didn't meet the qualifications to be it.
They're saying that the BTLA is in their order is saying that they don't meet the qualification of the RSA because of that voluntary status for charitable donations, and that their charter or their documents don't specifically state that they have to do charitable functions and things of that nature. So, and again, Masonic Lodge has every right to their appeal process all the way up through, through the BTLA and into the courts. So, they have every right to do that. And if obviously, if they have a discrepancy with this, they will take that up through themselves. But on behalf of the town, we're governed by this order. So
we basically have to sign this.
yeah, this is a standing court order from the BTLA. So if the board decides that they're not going to, it will be in defiance of the order. So. You have any other questions or anything? Okay.
The previous order in 2003 that got vacated or appealed or ignored.
No, what happened is, and this was discussed at the hearing, is that order from 2023, the way that the DRA stated with it is it only stands for 23. That once 24 started, it was a new application process. And that's why they took it from there, because we were operating under a court order at that point. I mean, and we argued that because most cases, if you get a court order, that decision stands moving forward. But they were very clear that that order was particularly for that year and that bit of filing, and that each subsequent year needs to be treated completely separately, and that order doesn't apply.
So they could meet the qualifications in upcoming years.
They could.
Okay.
They could. But unless there's some changes,
Right.
Based on what we mentioned and whatever appeal that they may launch, then we will have to, this order will set precedents. There's other towns, there's an order that was issued to Ossipee as well. And it was different than ours. But difference in the sense that there were some more different issues there. But the same general finding of the fraternal organization having documents or charter that does not go out the state. Yeah. So. But that's where we stand with that. Unless there's any other questions, I mean, we don't need a vote or anything, but those documents will need to be signed unless there is a compelling reason that the board does not want to do that. But with a court order, I don't. Yeah. I would caution that. So, all right, so we'll move on from there. Next thing I want to do is I provided you there's been some questions that have come up about the tax rate and the tax rate process. So the finance director and we discussed it today and she came up with this elaborate sort of breakdown. And again, you know, some of this stuff, a lot of times I bring stuff up, even if the board is well aware of it or the process and everything else, but I bring it up in public session because I want the public to hear it more so than it is. And this was provided to the board members so that you could reference it too if you had questions from the general public. So the reason for the more questions this year than in years past is because we had that new warrant that was passed that you had to put the estimated tax impact for every warrant article. So that drew a little bit of confusion this year with some people that aren't familiar with the tax process because that tax estimate, they were just adding it up. And a lot of people had the misconception that number that we're adding up of what we're appropriating for this year's warrant was on top of the tax rate. So the biggest clarification for everybody is that when we set the tax rate and we put this onto the warrant, everything starts at zero. So there may have been, you know, I think it was $5.74 in estimated tax impacts on the warrant. But we're starting back at zero. There were some people that thought that was above and beyond the $11.37 tax rate, which obviously that's disheartening to a lot of people with a jump like that. So what this breakdown is it explains that every year we start at zero. And as the appropriations come in, this is how the tax rate is basically set up. So in this year, 2023, approved budget of everything was $12,411,422. Okay. So first of all, we have to take away all of our estimated revenues that offset that. And those estimated revenues and uses of any surplus. There were warrant articles that we use surplus. Those do not count because obviously we're using surplus monies to pay for it. So that is deducted and those estimated revenues come from the year prior. The other thing is that we have to take out the or we have to add in the veterans credits and the overlay amount to cover any sort of issues we have there on the assessing side of things. That's what the overlay. As in this last year was, I believe it was $30,000 was the overlay recommendation. So after we take out all of that, the estimated net budget to be raised for this year is $9,397,174. So from that, then you get the town evaluation. So the town evaluation with the reassessment, we're up at $2,176,762,548. It's a big number to say. So once we divide that per thousand, it gives us what what we need to raise, the $2,176,762. At the bottom, it gives it more of a breakdown of an example using an assessed home at $300,000. And next to it, there's one for 2022. So for a home valued at $300,000 in 2022, we had a town portion at that point. Now, again, I want to stress, we're talking town portion right now, operating budget, not the school, the county and everything else added into that full tax rate. just to explain what's on the, like, to give an example about the operating budget, because we got these calls and we actually developed this for residents because they were calling in asking on how this was applied. So for the operating budget last year, it was a $3.91 tax impact per thousand. So for for a $300,000 house with 3.19 divided by per thousand, it ended up being $1,173 in taxes. Go over to the next column at 2023, you take that same. This year, our operating budget went to $4.31. So that's at $300,000 times $4.31 divided by thousand per thousand. It's $1,293. So the increase is 40 cents per thousand, which comes out to $120 a year. So really that breakdown, like, again, I mean, some people knew this, some people didn't know this. I'm putting it all out there and breaking it down so that for the people that didn't quite understand or know where we were going with those tax impacts, that they would understand that really the tax impact this year is not nearly as bad or as a lot of people were saying when they were adding up those warrant articles going down. So I still think, and I believe that the board probably thinks the same in the budget committee, that we did do a good job this year with the hurdles that we had to overcome and keeping the increase as minimal as possible with that. So
it was gonna be hard for any town this year to keep a flat budget with the electric, fuel and whatnot.
absolutely. So, and the only other thing I'll throw in there is there had been a couple of the misconceptions too, is just looking at the difference between the tax. So our tax rate went down by 1 penny. Nothing went up. It went down. So the year prior was $11.38. And that's the whole tax rate, state, local, county, local, and school, all together. This year it went down to $11.37. So we went down a penny. But there was some people that were like, why did my taxes go up? So explaining that, it was part of the reevaluation. So the reevaluation that went on last year that we completed affected assessments. Obviously in assessments, there's a formula. I'm not going to claim to know all the ins and outs of assessing. That's Rob's world. But that's highly driven by the market. And we all know what the market did, especially in our area. So that reassessment in a lot of areas went up. And if the assessment went up, obviously your taxes went up a little bit, but that had nothing to do with the tax rate. It had to do with the increase in assessment. So just putting that out there. No, thank you. Any questions?
It's listed here. Is that essentially the grand list?
What's that? I'm sorry.
Town valuation number.
Yes, that's the entire assessment value for the entire town.
And it did not change between 2020 and 2023?
No, because the reval wasn't done until towards the end of the year.
Well, I was thinking about the value of new construction.
But see, I don't think there's been time for that to be recouped. I mean, not recouped, but put back in, calculated with the open building permits. He's still going out and picking up new houses here and there that are being added in. But as of going into the year, the official evaluation at that point that has been tallied is still the same moving forward. By the end of this year, going into next year, he will have picked up those new constructions. But I know some of the new homes that were built mid-year and occupied have been were picked up in that reassessment. It's just there's a window of some that are in still stages of construction that they won't pick up until there's a CO for the full value. So if you don't have any more questions on that, just the last thing that I have for the board for discussion. So I wanted to bring up to the board an issue of the procurement policy, our purchasing policy. So last year, at the end of the year, we had issues with bids. And we talked to the board and we bumped the bid limit from 5,000 to 10,000. Since we've done that and practiced that, we still can't get any bids. We can't get people to do the formal bid process. The reason we're coming up with this discussion right now, and I'll bring this up as an example because it's an issue we're with right now. We've gone out for bid with the mower or, zero turn mower, about, I don't know, about $13,000, $14,000. Went to one of the local dealerships that we usually purchase things from or get things worked on, got a quote for bid specs. Okay, got the number. Went out to RFP, went out to bid. Nobody bid except for an out of area. I'm not sure if it was out of state or out of area, but I think it was out of area. Far enough that we couldn't travel to maintain it or use them for maintenance. That one individual put in a bid, and the one that we even used the quote from for the bid specs didn't even go in it. So what we're finding, and particularly with these middle dollar piece of equipment, is they won't bid unless you hold their hand all the way through the bid process. They won't seal, you know what I'm saying? They're not following, a lot of times the companies aren't following the steps for the bids. Well, they'll throw a quote out earlier on and then not submit for a bid later on. They're gonna, I don't know why or what's going on, but it's really, we're still at that threshold where it's just not.
And I
Yeah.
hate to say it, but I think at some point we're gonna have to make the decision where it's time to start letting the department heads negotiate these things. Because we can get them a lot cheaper by having somebody by having Scott or Courtney or whoever the department head is, chief, to go in there and say, okay, this is what you want, but this is what we'll pay you.
Right.
And where it's a town, they don't want to give us their undivided attention because the minute they're done, they know that we're just going to turn around and they just wasted months of their time. So if you take that guesswork out of it and let the department head go in there and say, okay, this truck's $35,000, but I don't want to pay $35,000 with a town. We're going to pay this much for it. And I'm going to tell you that 3/4 of the time you do that, they just want your money. So they know your money's good. So if you go in there and say they want 36,000 and they know they've got a margin in between that they can do. If you go in there and say, well, I'll give you $30,000 for that, and that's all I'm going to give you, they might leave and go away and come, but in 45 minutes, they're going to come back and say, well, can you give me 30? No, I'll give you 30. And by the time you're done negotiating or the department has done negotiating, you've done your due diligence and you got your truck down to what you want. But if you're putting it out to bid right now, and I'm running in this to myself, by the time the RFP goes out, it comes back and you get it back, either the price has changed or they don't even want to deal with you. You don't get anything. You don't get anything back because they just don't want to deal with towns because they put so much time into these bids. And then you just kind of blow them off afterwards.
So
Exactly.
So, I mean, looking at the whole reason we have a bid policy and the whole reason for instituting that is to create a competitive process. And that competitive process helps the town and the taxpayers see that they're getting the best bang for the buck, that value. Unfortunately, it's backfiring on us right now because I just gave you two examples. So we got $149,000 bid process for a building, one bid. Where's the competition? There was no competition. Nobody bid on it. They wouldn't. And there was companies that were talked to in particularly by the department head, but they just didn't go through with the bid. Same thing with the mower. This mower situation, a bid came in from out of the area and there's no competition. There's no other bid. And come to find out, and not obviously that we haven't made any decisions on the purchase, so I'm not going to name the companies, but the one that bid on it came in higher than the original basis for the RFP, but they never bid. So we're kind of torn because it's really, the policy is in that sense is backfiring on us because there's no competition there.
But are the department heads going, like you said, that they would, give you an initial estimate and then you would only get a bid from a different company?
Right.
Well, are the department heads going out to the company that they had initially talked to and said, hey, you have to have the bid in by
Oh,
this
yes,
time?
absolutely.
They are.
Oh, yes. Yep.
But you
Yeah,
gotta remember,
specifically.
once you get a bid and you've got 4 people that put bids in, that's the number. There's no talking about that number. That's the bid.
That's right.
You can't go in there and say, well, Jimmy bidded $30,000, and then you go over to Steve and say, hey, Steve, Jimmy bid $30,000. When those bids come in, that's it. You're done.
Yeah.
So there's no, it takes any negotiations off the table. It is who put the bids in, and that's the price of it.
And these companies are putting the time in and not getting anything in return. Like they might be like back when they were, but right now they can sell mowers or trucks to anybody. So right now they don't want to put in the extra couple hours of work
Don't have to.
because the guy's gonna walk through the door and buy that.
I had
Selling stuff hand over fist.
So what do you?
I had
want
a
to do the
Ford
time.
dealer. I had a Ford dealer in Portsmouth. And I'm not gonna say which one it was, but a dealer, and I asked them, they had a truck down there that we were looking at, and I said, can you give me municipal pricing on this? And they said no, and I said, why not? And he literally looked right at me and the guy that was with me and said, because we don't have to.
Right.
We can, whether you buy this truck or not, it's
They
legal.
don't care.
They don't care. It's gone.
They don't want
So-
to, they don't want to spend the time
Exactly.
and the effort to do it.
So you
So-
want to look to give the department heads more,
Well, I think
Yeah.
like what Ryan's saying, like a $13,000 lawnmower, we're going out for
Bid,
6
yeah.
months trying to get a lawn. It's
crazy.
some of this stuff we should be allowing them to.
So what my recommendation to the board was, or was going to be for this was not to disband the bid process altogether. Because we do for larger purchases, bulk item. So the way our policy reads right now, originally it was $5,000. Anything over $5,000, you have to go to bid.
Right.
Last year, at the end of the year, we knew we had a problem. We'd had a problem for years with it. So we bumped it to 10,000. Given the economy and the way things are right now, 10,000 just didn't even phase as far as the threshold. But in our policy for bulk purchases, it's over $20,000. The 10,000 was for single purchases. So at this point, my recommendation to the board would be to go for single purchases and bulk purchases to $30,000 for bid. But our policy allows anything under that for quotes. And that's what I would recommend that we edit the policy to, so that at $30,000, unless waived otherwise, if it's specialty equipment, the board always reserves the right to waive something at that point. But as a policy, that we look at doing single purchases and bulk purchases over 30,000 in a bid process, but anything under 30,000 that we allow. So part of our policy allows for the for under 10,000 right now for the department heads as well, and solicit quotes. So it's not a sealed bid process. So you can solicit quotes. And they have to bring in multiple quotes too. It's not that we're going to have a department head who's going to bring one quote from the same company every single time.
But in that same respect, it's not a sealed bid, so they can negotiate the price as well.
Right. You can talk, and it's not always, harsh playing one company against the other. But you can also have a dialogue, because some of these bids come in and they don't really meet the spec, or it's an off brand and something, and there's no dialogue. Once you open that bid, like you said, that sale bid, it is what it is right there. And there's a lot of times we've had to go out and rebid because people either aren't meeting the bid specs, or they're throwing in something else that really comes up shy and is maybe an off brand that we're not familiar with, that the town doesn't use, and then it becomes a mechanical issue, or an issue for parts, or an issue for maintenance. But having those quotes in there, we're still not forgoing, and I don't want to give anybody in the general public or the board the interpretation or the indication that I'm trying to disband the procurement policy, because I do think we need to shop around. It's our obligation to shop around to get the best price and to do it. We're just not getting that from the bid process. I think doing it we've had much better luck through the quote process, soliciting quotes, having that open dialogue, being able to kind of go back and forth and say, well, you know what, this piece of equipment doesn't have that, but it has this. We might be able to work with that, but I can't pay $20,000 if you came up shy on the bids. But we could make it work for $16,000, $17,000. With the quid, that dialogue is there. And that's all I'm suggesting is that we allow a little bit more latitude for that dialogue and the solicitation of quotes, and then bring all that back to the board.
So they'll still bring it back to us.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah,
can
they
still
won't
have
do it,
to
but
be-
you
just have quotes. You
Yeah,
won't
just
have
quotes
sealed
instead of
bids.
bids. So
Right.
they, basically you're giving the department heads the ability to haggle.
To
That's what we're
haggle
doing,
and then bring
which we
us
should
back to
do.
what they got for a
They come
best
back and
price.
this was my results. Exactly. Okay.
And the flip side to that is like with anything nowadays, like with our purchasing policy, 10,000, that would mean that
Nothing that
if
way.
Scott wanted to go buy a set of tires for the loader, you have to come in here, if you're in emergencies, but something happened and the loader
Yeah.
and have he's gonna come in here to replace the tires on the loader and wait till we're ready to replace the tires on the loader because they're $15,000 for a set of loader tires.
Yep.
So I
That
mean,
makes
it gives,
more
it gives a little cushion
Yep.
too, so.
I like the ability for the department heads to be able to solicit quotes. It's
Yeah.
just like you said, being able to walk in and
And negotiate the price.
negotiate the price.
Get the best price.
That's what the, yeah.
And
And anything over that, like you said,
It has to-
it has to go to bid. There's gotta be a line that says, okay, you're not going out and getting me 3 bids and bring me back 3 bids on a $200,000 loader. We're not gonna do that.
Yeah.
This stage of the game, we have to do this.
And again, it's all gonna come back in front of you folks anyways, so that if the process or what the department had done doesn't make sense, then we can always go back out. And do that. I mean, we're not
we don't have to
going
accept
everything completely, but.
Right.
Like I said, the latitude is there, and I think we'll get a better result. And if we move forward with that, so. I don't have an issue with that.
Just don't have an issue with that at all.
You need just general consensus.
No,
Yeah,
I would need a
need a
vote
vote
for
on
the
that.
board to raise the bid limits for both. If you want, I'll make the motion. You guys can just.
Just make a motion.
As stated. No, I'm not gonna make the motion. I'm just gonna read it and then. But,
If you give me the numbers, I'll make the motion if you want.
okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, it would just be, I make a motion to change the procurement policy from to $30,000, any single or bulk purchase
Mhm.
to go out to bid for $30,000 or more. Anything under $30,000, solicitation and quotes would be accepted.
Okay, I'm gonna make the motion to make that motion exactly the way Ryan just read it.
I'll second that.
Sorry,
So it'll be for 30
that's not gonna
30,000.
help you
That's
much.
not gonna do anything.
Those are my notes on the
to
homework.
do it, so to raise everything to. If under $30,000 doesn't go out to bid, it can be bargained for by the.
Solicitation.
By the department head.
And anything above
30
30,000 still needs to go out.
Still needs to go to RFP.
I apologize for that.
That's okay. And you know what, actually, that's good. We'll do that, but I will put it formally in writing so that it goes out to the board in the next meeting. So you see it in writing,
Okay.
what that policy comes out to.
You
I
second?
second it.
Any discussion?
I'm a
All
little
those-
confused on,
Sorry.
if I'm a supplier, what's the difference between the effort I put into a quote and the effort I put into a bid?
And honestly, because I can sit here with you if you're doing a quote and say, yeah, that's not gonna work for us. We need to tighten that number up. If you put in a quote, it's sealed, it comes to me in an envelope. And I can't open it. And once I do open it, and once we do open it in here,
There's no talk.
there's no talking about it. That's the number.
You get the RFP, you gotta go through the whole RFP and have everything in order of that RFP, and then it's a sealed bid.
There's a very strict
Pretty safe.
process. And that's what it's saying. The
Much longer
documentation,
process.
the documentation,
If I'm a supplier, I'm not sure I understand the difference. If I can quote it and skip a whole bunch of requirements.
It's not really skipping requirements. What it is you being able to negotiate. If he goes in looking for a lawn tractor and the guy says lawn tractor is $15,420. And you say, and I've done it myself. You take a piece of paper and you say, this is what I'm gonna pay for that.
Right.
And he picks it up and goes, I can't do that. Okay, well then we'll go to somebody that can. We don't have to, you know what I mean? It just gives the negotiation power for,
To the
department head.
Yeah, no,
Gives a little bit more power,
I understand that. It's not really clear to me why.
because he doesn't have to do as much work.
Yeah.
If the department head goes into the store to purchase something, he can do it right then and there, instead of sending out the process of a whole RFP and following the RFP and doing all the paperwork and sending it back in. It's a sealed bid. There's no discussion.
Yeah.
That is the price.
And he's putting time in that
So
he might
there's the
not get anything
difference.
back on.
And
So-
it's usually a 30-day window too. So you're talking a supplier's got to wait 30 days.
And be expected to hold their price
Yeah.
for 30 days, which none of them will do.
It just makes it a little bit more appealing to him to get it done in a hurry
Mhm.
rather than going through the whole process.
So on Monday, if they went to this place and got 3 quotes and then or Thursday, they went and got their quotes, they come into us Monday and say, so I negotiated this, this and this for this mower. It's not a 30-day, write an RFP, go 30 days, wait 30 days for the RFP to be on the paper so everybody can read it and then come back. And then by the time the RFP's read and come back, the price has changed by $400 or $500 or $1,000 or depending on what you're buying. Just gives a little more flexibility to them is all, to the department head.
Face-to-face haggling.
It
versus-
still has to come to us for approval.
Still comes to us.
It still has to come to us.
No.
Or
okay,
whoever's
I
sitting here.
understand.
It's gonna be a little bit more appealing for the person, for the seller to get involved instead of just not caring.
The turnaround from start to finish. Like, we have meetings every 2 weeks. In a 2-week period, a department head can get the quotes they need, negotiate the price down to the best deal we could get, and then 2 weeks for the next meeting, get an approval. RFP process, because the RFP has to come in front of the board for approval. Then it goes back out, then it needs to be posted for 30 days. So you take you can do a 2-week process, or you end up with, it's usually at least 60 days between the time you put it out and notice it to the paper. Because if you do RFP, you gotta do all your noticing and all that. By the time they open the bids, and then we get to another meeting for the bid results to be brought to the board, that's really the savings there, is that 1, you get the conversation, and 2, it's the
Right,
time
you're
factor.
sitting, in that case, I'm sitting in front of you going, this is what I need. And then I go to the next dealer and say, this is what I need, and I'm sitting in front of you, so if I send an RFP to you and you're like, oh, it's the town of Alton, we're not even gonna bother because they're just gonna push us to the side anyway, once they get the
So
answer.
instead of a 60-day window, we shorten it down to 2 weeks. So then, those people are more apt to give us their best price forward, knowing we have to make a
Well, not only
decision in
that,
2
Dick, but you're
weeks.
sitting in front of them talking. to
Oh,
them.
yeah.
They're negotiating.
It's like the last time you bought a car, you would, Scott would call up and he would say, I need a loader. I need it to spec out to this. Well, now Scott can go to the dealership, say, this is what I want. What do you have? And then he goes to the next one, say it was Cat, and then he goes to Bobcat. It makes the face to face, and then he's able to also have an answer in 2 weeks versus that full 60-day window of them having to write it all up and do their thing on bank, and maybe they'll get the sale or maybe they won't.
But
As
anything,
long as it's under 30,000.
right, and anything.
Yeah, as long as it's
anything
under
over
30, I didn't mean to use
$30,000,
loader as an
it's still the
example.
RFP process,
Right.
no matter what. It's these small items that these people don't seem to want to bid on.
Like a
And
lawnmower.
they're so busy and they've got so much going on. That they don't want to have to do this whole process. It's going to take them a month.
Well, they don't have to.
$13,000 for one mower or
They
something.
don't have to, because somebody's gonna buy it whether we go in and bid on it or not. There's not a lot of it out there right now, because everybody's buying it up. And I'm sure that's gonna stop at some point, but right now we're in a position where we don't really have a choice. Yeah, there's a motion and a second.
In a second.
If there's no more discussion, I'll call it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's all I got, folks.
All right, approval of minutes, March 6, 2023, public session. I'm gonna abstain, I wasn't here.
I'll make a motion to approve them.
Actually,
You look deep in thought.
well, the problem.
Oh,
is-
that means we don't have enough.
Abstaining, we don't have.
We don't have a quorum. No, there's only the two of us.
Oh, yeah.
They weren't here, so they can't vote on it. And
Is there minutes from a prior meeting?
yeah, so forget it for now. Table it.
Honestly, I've never encountered that before.
Nope, so
Can I vote on?
you're still gonna have to. You're gonna
All right.
you
then
still
I-
have to vote on it. Otherwise, we have the same problem next month.
I was gonna say,
We-
we're
we
never
just-
gonna.
I didn't want to.
Keep kicking it down the road.
Well, that's right. You were here. You came in late. But you
Oh,
did-
Yes,
oh,
he
you
was.
were here.
Yes, he was. Sorry, yeah. You came in almost at the end of the meeting.
All right, you had me confused there for a minute.
So I make a motion, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for March 6th. twenty twenty-three.
I apologize. I'll second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Public.
Yep.
Non-public. We already divulged number one.
Yeah.
But number two needs to remain sealed still.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to accept the non-public minutes from March 6, 2023, and divulge number two.
No, number one,
Not divulge,
number two.
number two.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Consent agenda, can I get a motion on the consent?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda, as written.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we have no public input. Come on up.
Good evening, congratulations,
Thank you, Mr. Carr.
Lauren Cobb. I'd like to talk about this town report. I know you don't have it in front of you, but just starting at the beginning. Page 53, the Public Works Highway Department report. I was kind of surprised at the page 53, the road surface management survey. And it was the contracted, the Public Works one and IWRQ. And at the end of this paragraph, it says the assessment placed the town roadway network with a road service life of 9.1 years or a pavement condition index score of 69 or a C- score. I don't know if you people have looked at that. Have you looked at this book? We're spending over $1 million a year and we're C-. Has anybody looked at this report?
Yeah, no, I didn't see it, but I believe this report is something that just came out when Mr. Kinman got here.
Right, but you people are responsible, though. None of
You
you,
were here before we were, Lauren.
no, this report, this thing is just something you people put in.
Right, but this is
Program.
coming this is coming brand new from
Yeah,
Mr. Kinman. He's talking about how the roads conditions are previously. He's just doing this report now.
well, I think the last 6 years, we've been spending over $1 million. But I guess my question is, how do we know, what's in this report? Has anybody looked at it?
The Public Works Director that we pay to look at it.
Yeah, but how about the people that I elect?
I understand that, but there's a couple of us, I do it for a living. I understand that. But some of these guys ain't gonna know what they're looking at. So that's why we pay somebody like him to do it.
Yeah, but still, I elect you people, and I think if it's unreadable, if ever it's unreadable by the layman, what good is it? So I would like to see this report, this thing. I don't know, how much do we spend on this company to do this report?
You'll have to talk to Mr. Kinman.
Okay, I'd like to see this, what this report
And
is,
and I think you're
you
entitled.
know,
to-
because I am concerned.
That's a software program we own. That's not a company.
Yeah, it's not a-
I mean, it is a
There's
company,
a
but
company?
that's a software. We bought that.
Is there a
software.
report? Is there something to see?
Oh, you mean the actual like generated report? Yes.
I'd like to
Yes.
see what my road is rated at.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, definitely. I would think though, when you look at that, just I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I don't wanna-
And hold on, it can be provided to you, Lauren. The director said if you would like to see it, it can be provided for you.
Yeah,
Excellent. And
absolutely.
I urge
Sorry,
the
that's
rest
where I
of
was
the
going
board
with
to
that.
look at it too. The F a C-. On page 59, there's the assessment of the town. 2,176,762,548. So I happened to look up last year's. And strangely, it came in $37,000 less than the year before. And then I look at the last year's building inspector's report, 51 new homes. So that if they're $250,000 each, that's $4 million added, but we're losing money in the evaluation of the town. Now, something doesn't make sense here. How can this be less? I mean, $37,000, that's not too much over $1 billion, but still, when you're adding 51 new homes,
A lot of those are not
no, this is last year. This is
2022.
current 21, 22, not 22, 23, last the year before. And we had that reevaluation, right? But the numbers are coming down when we're adding 51 new homes. Something to look
That's
into,
51
something to look into.
homes Right now,
I don't
Huh?
think they're
I don't
completed.
think that's 51 completed homes.
They're all completed.
There's the numbers in the book.
I think those are current.
Take last year's book and take this year's book. The numbers are right here. And on page 157, we talked about the tax rate and all. All I have on my information I have is from this book, 21 to 22. It went from 357 to 391. That's 34 cents. That's 9.5% last year. I don't know what it's going to be this year, but that's 9.5% last year, the town's portion. The only reason it stayed level is because the state education took 32 cents less. You people added 34 cents. They took 42 cents away on the state education. So the bottom number comes out, but it was a 9.5% increase in that tax rate for the town. I don't know what's going to be this year. I don't have those numbers. All I have is from last year's from this book. That's just concerning. If you look at your operating budget, it went $8,691,586. The one that we voted on a few weeks ago was $9,252,980. That's $561,394. That's 6.5% just in your budget alone. So these numbers, there's a lot of information in this book. I think it should be looked at.
And I'm not saying that, but the board has to decide whether we continue the discussion.
Okay.
No, what I was just letting them know is the time limit.
Anybody else want to speak? Bob, did you want to speak? Okay,
Okay, so as long as the board's all right with giving.
as long as you guys are all right. I don't have
The
any-
participation policy
We're
calls
here
for a
and-
time limit, so I just don't know.
As well continue.
Yeah,
I'm just asking you to look at some of these numbers in this book. Because this is the official numbers, right? And then on page. Oh. Did the dog eat it? Did the dog eat it?
dog eat what?
Saying pages of.
The selectmen's report.
That's why we pay a town administrator.
The what?
And I'll fall on that sword. I didn't know that we needed to do one. I've never done one anywhere else. I don't do one. I do one as a department head in my town, but we don't have a selectmen's report. The selectmen's report is the town administrator's report.
Well, in this
He's
town,
not gonna write anything any different than what we've done here. But I do agree, and I'm not gonna argue with you. That's on me. Because I didn't write one, but I didn't realize that I had to write one. So I'll fall on that sword for you, but.
I think it's over 100-year history that we have a town report by the selectmen to tell the people what has been done, what's been the goals, thank them for the money they put into the town. I do hope that. And I also hope that we have a state of the town report at the deliberative session. That's another thing that we've done for years and years and
What
years.
is it? I'm sorry, I didn't state it.
The selectmen,
Okay, I got you. I'm sorry.
Paul knows, you get up, Rubens did it. Get up, you explain what happened this year, what the selectmen goals were, what they did.
Well, I can tell you that we haven't done that since I've been here. And I
agree. Virgil didn't do it,
I did not know.
but we have done it. You've been on there long enough.
Ruben did.
Yeah, and
Okay,
for years. Thank you. Oh,
but
yes, I do have another thing. Well, I'll go after Paul.
no, you might as well, you just.
Yes, I do have
Get it up.
the fire ladder truck. We probably do need it, but I'm concerned that it was just presented as, we want this one. That's it. You didn't talk about going out to bid on that, right?
That was actually done through the consortium.
The what?
It's a consortium, right? It's a consortium purchase that the board last year, the board had discussed it with the purchase of one of the other engines. They're actually used, and I'm sorry, maybe if that conversation wasn't clear enough, but there was other proposals that were part of the chief's and the captain's proposal. They all came from, there's a consortium company that they're utilizing for this special equipment to bid it for us. And bid for a group of towns so that they're getting better pricing that way, where they're using a group. So that's how that was brought.
But now you're gonna put the money on the line. Wouldn't it have been a good idea to at least say, well, let's see about some of these other companies, right?
Well,
Put
that's
out
what
the
the
bid.
consortium does. The consortium does that all for you.
Yeah, but still, and I know it's all right to somebody come up here and say, oh yeah, we don't want it the last minute, we don't have to do it. Well, I think before you buy into that, I think that would be illegal. The attorney should check to make absolutely sure that's exactly what's in your contract before you sign it. Because it's all enough to say, the salesman says, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I just think that I know it's great to have one manufacturer, but that manufacturer doesn't make solenoid, hydraulic valves. It doesn't make the castings for the pumps. It doesn't do that. There's no company that makes all of those pieces, right? Maybe a majority of it they do, but it would be, something to think about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Boy, it's nice to be on this side. Bob Holt. The bid process. All right, I understand where you're coming from. We had the same problem. But you gotta have to remember the bid process is a safety valve also. And not only for the town, but for the department head, the employee. As far as up in the ante of it, I can agree with that, because just of inflation.
Right.
5,000 isn't what 10,000 or 20,000 was.
Right.
But the selectmen always still have the right to waiver the bid process. In other words.
At any time, no matter, you're right.
Yeah, at any time. So if somebody comes in and wants to buy the mower, like was brought up for an example, and they can't get bids, the board can waive the bid process and just ask for quotes.
Right.
So you can do that.
Right.
And
I think that's kind of what we did, Bob, but we just.
we've
said,
done that.
If it's over 30 grand, you still have to put it out to bid.
Yeah.
But if it's under 30 grand, you can go solicit quotes and bring them to us and then we'll decide.
Yeah.
Whether you can do it. So I agree with you there. I agree.
Okay, good enough. On the ambulance, what was the increase?
7,000.
Yeah, it was originally 7,000, but they took care
That
of
was all taken care of.
We
They
didn't
didn't ask us for anything. They said that it was all set.
What do you mean?
they negotiated
They
out
negotiated
some of the
7,000
specs.
or They negotiated it, so it wasn't. It didn't, we didn't have to come up with any money
It
for it.
wasn't
Oh,
needed.
oh.
It wasn't needed.
So it wasn't needed.
Oh, okay, that was a little.
Yep.
And one other thing, when you're sitting out in the audience, I noticed this years ago too, this speaker system we have ain't
Yeah.
very good.
No, we're having problems with it, but we're currently, we just got a grant for a wireless microphone system to redo this whole room. And I got notification from Homeland Security that that grant is supposed to be through governor and council on April 12th. So in less than a week or so, we'll be able to order the new equipment so that the microphones and the whole system is going to be upgraded.
Short of yelling in these things, you can't.
When somebody sits here speaking,
Mhm.
the voice is going that way. People out here can't really pick it up at all. One other thing. This room sure looks nice, guys. And I'll tell you, we spent a lot of money, but this is an old building. It's a piece of history in Alton.
It needed to be done.
And we had more junk hanging on these walls in this building. We had more leaks, water running in this building. You couldn't heat it. And hey, job well done.
Thank you,
sir.
Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
And thank you again for your service.
Probably take a little bit of this more personally than I should. But unfortunately, the general public doesn't get all of the information that you gentlemen do. So I'm sorry, Patrick O'Brien, Fire Department. So I just wanted to hit on a couple things. When we talk about sole source manufacturing, that's not necessarily about solenoids and pumps. That's about the body, the chassis, the cab, and then whatever specialty item is built on it. Yes, of course, they all use very similar items, pumps, that kind of thing. Those are all similar. It's just the bodies, the chassis, the specialty aerial device. If they have different manufacturers, they all have the ability to say, no, it's their fault. One of the big reasons why we like to stay sole source. And this question did come up when we talked about the ambulance thing. I think Brock had mentioned it, but just to give you an idea of some of the ways that we negotiated, we removed a front to rear intercom. We removed air horns. We changed the tires and wheels to something else that we can upgrade when we get here. So there's certain things that we eliminated. That
Right.
privacy windows was another one, for instance, that we can hopefully do after it gets here.
I got you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Pat. Anybody else?
Brittany Mitchell, I'm speaking now as a resident, not the superintendent of the waterway. I want everybody to look around this room and see the amount of people that actually volunteer their time to be here. The numbers for people running for elected offices are dwindling. You had 2 open positions and 2 people ran and 1 write-in. I would hope that at some point, some of the older generations start to see that this is the future of the town of Alton. I have a 13-year-old son. A lot of you have children that are the same age or have grandchildren, and that's our future. The future starts here in this room with this Board of Selectmen, and we can either help or we can try to find fault in everything we do. But I think we all need to work on the same goal and work together. If we're going to nitpick about periods and commas and missing pages, I think we're missing the big picture. So as a resident, I would like to make sure everybody keeps focused on what the goal is here. It's not to make anyone look bad. The goal is to do what's right for the town of Alton. That's what you guys are all here for. That's what I'm here for. And I would just like to make sure that most people try to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. Because what happens when nobody else wants to run? Because it's almost there. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, can I entertain a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
All right, before anybody gets up out of the table. I gotta